Greetings, everyone. I'll be with you in a second, shortly. Make sure you got your popcorn, peanuts, and everything else for this one. Greetings, 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 greetings. It is I, King Clifford Jefferson, a senator of Godfrey, the fifth kind of man Jew, son of folk, ruler of Jerusalem. I am the reincarnation of King Edgar the Peaceful, which we know as Jesus Christ, the Vicar Christ, or Melchizedek, which means the King of Righteousness. It is April 11th, 2025, which is equivalent to the birth year 2975. I greet you in the name of my Queen, Sister Godwinson from the House of Godwinson. I greet you in the name of Archbishop Belmont from the House of Belmont, as well as all officers, as well as staff, and all those who are trying to get understanding of what it is that we are here and called to do. It is April 11th, 2025, equivalent to the birth year 2975. Once again, it's just beautiful to be here and a privilege to be at the front or to be the driver or to be the head of the class, whatever position we're playing. Pretty much like the movie MacGyver. Not part, so not MacGyver, Top Gun. And we know Tom Cruise was one of the main characters in the movie Top Gun. And there's a movie out, or if you haven't seen it already, called Top Gun Maverick. And that's a really good movie because he was not just only a fighter pilot, but he was also an instructor. And if you watch that movie, as well as any movie that Tom Cruise plays, it's very important in order for you to lead, you must be able to learn. Okay, and a lot of what he did in the movie was based upon what he learned from his predecessors. Okay, so with that being said, it's a privilege for me to be here today to be not just as the leader or the king, but as the teacher. All right, so that the legacy of what a king represents can live on. And, I would want nobody else at this position than myself as a result of their lack of comprehension of what it is that the people need. Because as you can see in the movie Top Gun, most of these so-called best of the best of the best were used to the so-called rules governing aerial combat that was presented in flight school. And as you can see, when Tom Cruise came, he threw it in the garbage because he said most of your adversary knows uh, the rules of engagement that you're used to. So, like Tom Cruise threw the manual in the garbage, I'm throwing your manual in the garbage, and what I'm teaching you based upon my understanding of their manual, as a result of that information, if you learn it, practice it, you'll wind up being the best of the best of the best of the best. So you should watch that movie definitely. Top Gun Maverick. Greetings, brother Harris from the House of Harris. Glad you were able to join me today. Once again, like, share, subscribe. Free and common focus is welcome if you have it to give, as well as pass this information on because it's paramount to whatever it is that was promised to you from so long ago, which is why we're at where we at today, which is the topic of the lesson. Who are we the people? Is not who we think it is. Who they say we the people are is not who you think it is. Okay? Who they say the people are is not who they think it is not who we think it is. That's today's lesson. So give me 1 second. Once again, today's lesson is who are we the people is not who you think it is. Who are we the people is not who you think it is. All right. Very, very, very informative lesson that I'm going to give here today. And once again, I'm glad it's me teaching it because if it wasn't me, it would never be taught the right way. So, with that being said, this takes us to the preamble. Any questions? Please post them in the chat or the comment box. Seems like we lost one. All right. We the people. A lot of us think that when they say we the people, they're talking about us. They're not talking about you. You need to read further in between the lines. This is what we're going to do today. I know this channel is not well liked. I know this channel is not uh uh doesn't portray what the people look for in the channel in regards to what they crave. All right. So I only come for a selected few. And that selected few is we the people. But what people? Because we know demographic is based upon the people in society. So when we say people, we ain't talking about all people. I need y'all to really hear what I'm saying to y'all today. In 2025, demography. Demos meaning people, society, and graphia meaning writing, drawing, or description. It's a statistical study of human population. So that means it's data that's collected about the people in society based upon the writing, drawing, or description. All right, of the statistical study of the population of the people, their size, composition, ethnic group, their age, and how they change through interplay of fertility, birth, mortality, death, and migration. Okay, so all this is needed. Greetings, Brother McGarr from the House McGarr. Glad you were able to join us today in this beautiful lesson in regards to who are we the people is not who you think it is. Okay, not who you think it is. So demography is the people society, and that can only be proven based upon the data that's collected of the people in society, which is based upon the writing, drawings, descriptions, which is statistical study of that population, which denotes to the composition, the ethnic, genealogy, ethnicity, race and how they change through interplay of fertility, birth, mortality, death, and migration. Very important that we bring that into the equation when we're talking about uh, we the people. Okay, when we're talking about we the people, we're talking about the demography here of the people in society based upon the writing, grasp, and description. All right, very important. We're talking about all these people here, and we know that we all ain't the same, right? We can at least make that a degree of understanding that we are all not the same people. All right, hold that thought. Right, so just because you watch these videos, don't mean anything to me. Okay, it's about your participation and why you're in class, because you're in class whether you know or not. And like I said, you're here to learn, not just to be entertained. Okay, so I don't do this just because I want to do it. I'm obligated to do it because no one else is doing it. Uh, T'Challa had an obligation to succeed and walk in the footsteps of his predecessor. Whether the footsteps were negative or the footsteps were positive, whether the footsteps were pro or whether the footsteps were con. Somebody had to walk in those footsteps. Okay, so this is all about allegiance. All right, and we the people had an allegiance. Okay, because the allegiance denotes to alliances, because this all pertaining to the protection of the domestic tranquility of the people which makes up the demographics. Okay, whether it's one group of people or a bunch of people in society from different groups. Okay, let's see the text of the preamble. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. Okay, their union. We're not talking about the union of the crown, because that was a different union and involving a different set of people from a different set of demographics, from a different demographics based upon the data collected. Okay, and based upon we the people, we can all presume that this is new data. Okay, this is new information being collected. All right, and now the collection of data information is now being changed in 2025 based upon the demography of the people. And we know we are now classified on the federal level as the white people and colored people on the state level prior to this new collection of data based upon demography. Okay, and we're now classified as what we call MENA, Middle Eastern North African. When you go back to barbarian, it defines as the Berber. Okay, so it says, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. This means their descendants, their heirs. Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Okay? We know their citizenship is based upon the Naturalization Act of 1790, which had nothing to do with demography. It had to do with based upon the color of skin and based upon their descendants from the Caucasian race. Okay. Basics. Basics. In earlier documents, including the 1778 Treaty of Alliance with France, the Articles of Confederation, and the 1783 Treaty of Paris recognized American independence. The word people was not used, and the phrase of the United States was followed immediately by a listing of the state from north to south. The change was made out of necessity. You know what necessity means, right? And necessity means you are obligated to do something, whether it's against the law or for the law. In this case, we're obligated as a necessity, and it's justified because if we agree to what's the practice today, we'll be violating our own law. Okay, this is governed under the Criminal Statute of New Jersey Revised Statute, Title 2C. Okay, so in earlier documents, in regards to we the people, including the 1778 Treaty of Alliance with France, okay, the Articles of Confederation, as well as the Treaty of Paris of 1783, recognition of American independence, the word people was not used. You hear that? So when you're talking about we the people of the United States, they was not talking about you when they were talking about the Treaty of Paris or the Article of Confederation or the Treaty of Alliance. Can we all agree with that fact? Conclusive fact. Not presumptive, but conclusive fact that they were not we the people. If you agree with that, give me a thumbs up. And anyone who come on late, please give me a thumbs up. But the 6 who watching now, could you please give me a thumbs up in the chat line if you agree with that presumption of mine, which I conclude that is conclusive. You just can't stay silent here at the Third Typical English Church of England. You're going to have to participate. Now, if you have responded and I don't see your response on the chat line, then I know it's the algorithm. So before we even get into the meaning, we have to deal with we the people based upon those people that existed prior to their Declaration of Independence in January 14th, July 4th, 1776. All right? Very important. In earlier documents, we have to deal with who's the people they're talking about as we the people, because it said they never used the word people. All right? But there were some people which made up the demographics at that particular time in regard to the Treaty of Alliance in 1778, the Articles of Confederation in 1783. The Articles, the Treaty of Alliance in 1778, and the Articles of Confederation, as well as the Treaty of Paris of 1783. Okay, there were people who made up these groups. Very important. So we want to look at the Treaty of Alliance because that's the first one they mentioned. Okay, that takes us to the old alliances. Okay, this takes us to the old alliances because we know alliances means treaties, agreements, compacts, contracts, etc. All right. And it says the Treaty of Alliance of 1787. Now, prior to that treaty, we already talked about it in my last class about the Carolingian and the Abbasid dynasty in regards to the origin of feudalism. Okay? Once again, the Frankish and the Abbasid dynasty was based upon relationships of the Muslims and the Frankish. Okay? So Muslim and the Frankish, and the Carolingian dynasty was under Charlemagne. Okay, and we know they were unified. The barbarian tribes, which we go to barbarian tribes, they were classified as Middle Eastern North African. Okay, for the sake of today's lesson, I can't go through it. But it's just here, Frankish Carolingian Empire and the Abbasid dynasty. We're not talking about those people when they talk about we the people at that time. Okay, we're going to the people of the 1787. When you scroll down, that takes us to the Franco-American Alliance, which is right here. Okay, the Franco-American Alliance, and that alliance was part of a bunch of alliances that were made with the Frankish, which is the Carolingians, which was the origin of feudalism actually started from. Okay, which they inherited from Rome, which were also considered barbarians, just used or defined in a different way. So the Franco-American Alliance was the 1778 alliance between the Kingdom of France and the United States during the American Revolution, American Revolutionary War, Formalized in 1778, the Treaty of Alliance, it was a military pact in which the French provided many supplies for the Americans. Okay, as we can see. So, as we see, the preamble of the United States in regards to the topic "We the People" never used the word "people" because those people that they were using in regards to the new United States were not the same people going back to the Treaty of Paris or the Treaty of Alliance or the Articles of Confederation. Okay, very important that you understand that. All right, and we know feudalism started with who? The Carolingian dynasty. Right. The reason why I'm reading this because Rutgers University is going to come into the argument. Rutgers University is going to come into the argument in regards to today's topic. England. Feudalism in the 12th century Norman England was among the better structured and established in Europe at that time. However, it could be structurally complex, which is illustrated by the examples of the feudal barony of Stafford, as described in a survey of knight fees made in 1166 and recorded in the Black Book of the Exchequer. This was a roll of parchment of several such recordings, recording the quantity and tenor of each knight fee held in capital. This is called capitat. It was a record commissioned by the Treasury as the knight fee was the primary basis for assessing certain types of taxation. This is called free and common soakage. Okay? For example, feudalism and the exchange of land for military services, thus everything was based on what was called a knight fee, which is fiefdom or estates in land. A feudal barony contains several knight fees. For example, the Baron Robert D. Stafford held a barony containing 60 knight fees. Often lords were not so much lords presiding over great estates, but managers of a network of tenants and subleases. All right, very, very important. But you understand what I just read. Because we're talking about Rutgers University. So this is examples of feudalism. All right, and it said the origin. Actually, I was supposed to go here. Feudalism. Let's go back one. History of feudalism. Feudalism is in its various forms usually emerged as a result of the decentralization of an empire, such as in the Carolingian Empire in the 9th century AD, which lacked the bureaucratic infrastructure necessary to support cavalry without allocating land to these mountain troops. Mountain soldiers began to secure a system of hereditary rule over their allocated lands, and their power over the territory came encompass the social, political, judicial, and economic sphere. So we're talking about feudalism, and it was under the authority of the Roman Carolingian Empire, who was also known as barbarians. Okay, very important for you to understand it in regards to today's topics, because we're talking about alienation of property, which we call it subfeudation, meaning the ability to be able to alienate property. Okay, but before we even get into that, we want to deal with who are we the people, and we the people is not who you think it is. Okay, it's not who you think it is. Let's see why. Let's start here. We start here. New Jersey Provincial Council. Got to continue to go over this because apparently people can't comprehend. Okay, New Jersey Provincial Council. Okay, because we're talking about we the people, and we the people we're talking about in 1776 is not we the people in the Treaty of Paris or the Articles of Confederation or the what was it called, the 1778 alliance. Okay, they were not the same people. So in 1776, from 1702 to 1776, it clearly shows that the people were subject to the government that was in place at that particular time, based upon the demography of the people who make up that data collection in that particular territory, known as New Jersey. Okay, because we know in New Jersey, His Majesty's Crown was set up from 1702 until 1776. Okay, and at this time, it was ruled by certain monarchs, or what we call foreign monarchs, versus a domestic monarch. You have a foreign monarch and a domestic monarch. Okay, a foreign monarch and a domestic monarch. His Majesty Council for the Province of New Jersey was the upper house of New Jersey legislature under colonial rule until it was replaced by New Jersey Legislative Council under the new Constitution of New Jersey in 1776. All right. The history in regard to that, the Provincial Council was established in 1702 upon the surrender by the proprietors of East Jersey and those of West Jersey of the right of government to Queen Anne. Anne's government united the two colonies as the province of New Jersey, a royal colony established in a new system of government. Okay? Seats were 12. Political groups was the local faction who made up to 12. The length of the term of the crown and the authority of the crown was indefinite. Okay? Was indefinite. Very important for us to comprehend that. Seats sitting alternately in Burlington or Perth Amboy, called the Royal Colony of New Jersey. Prior to the surrender of the charter given by George Carteret and John Berkeley, or John Berkeley, George Carteret, however you say their name, it was a charter given by Charles II. This was the first charter of New Jersey. New Jersey's charter or constitution in 1776 was not New Jersey's first charter. It was not New Jersey's second charter. Okay, it was just an instrument declaring independence from Great Britain in 1780 in 1776 as a result of the structure of the government, as a result of it being overseen by foreign monarch versus a domestic monarch, i.e., a king of England versus a king of Scotland. Okay, because none of those Stuart monarchs ever stood foot on this soil. But yet, the authority of the crown was established here in what we call New Jersey, called the crown. Okay? And that crown was called the Crown of England. The instructions from Queen Anne to Viscount Cornbury, the first royal governor of the Royal Colony of New Jersey, outlined a fusion of power system which allowed for an overlap of the executive, legislative, and judicial authority, and provided for a bicameral legislature consisting of the Council and General Assembly. On December 6, 1776. Governor William Franklin paroled the New Jersey legislature until January 3rd, 1776, but it never met again. William Franklin, the illegitimate son of Benjamin Franklin, created the charter for Queens College in November 10th, 1766. Very important. William Franklin, the illegitimate son of Benjamin Franklin, created the charter for Queens College on November 10th, 1776, which is where the 1947 Constitution and the government of New Jersey in 1947, which was established by Alfred Driscoll. Okay? Alfred Driscoll. Alfred Driscoll was one of the governors of New Jersey. Okay? Very important to pay attention to the names I'm throwing out there because they're going to be addressed again. So William Franklin, okay, was the royal governor under the crown of England, not the Scottish crown or the Irish, what we call Ireland crown, because that unification did not come until 1707. The Union of Crowns happened in 1603, and the crowns of England and the crowns of Scotland and Ireland remain separate. Okay? Very important for you to understand that. All right? So that takes us to the Union of the Crowns. To qualify it. Union of the Crowns. The Union of the Crowns was the ascension of King James VI of Scotland to the throne of England. So they had separate thrones, okay? He ascended to the throne of England as James, the first Scottish king to sit on the English throne, meaning that he was a foreign monarch. He was not a domestic monarch, but he was a foreign monarch. And the crown of England was sitting right here in New Jersey from that time all the way up to 1702 when the Scottish unification that resulted from the Union of the Crown in 1603, when Queen Anne came to rule, she was still overseeing the English crown as a foreign monarch. Not a domestic monarch, but a foreign monarch. The Union of Crowns, ascension of King James VI of Scotland to the throne of Kingdom of England, not Scotland because he's already sitting on the throne of Scotland, as James I in the practical unification of some functions such as overseas diplomacy. So it was not talking about Scotland. It was talking about overseas diplomacy. That means that either we're talking about that island that they call United Kingdom, or they were talking about the demographics over here, what they call North America, specifically New Jersey, because the crown, as we see it in New Jersey, the authority in which it was under was indefinite. Okay? It says here, the Kingdom of England as James I in the practical unification of some functions such as overseas diplomacy of the two separate realms under a single individual on the 24th of March in 1603. It followed the death of James' cousin Elizabeth I of England, the last monarch of Tudor dynasty, and she was not a de jure kingdom of England. Okay? The union was personal and dynastic. But the crown of England and the crown of Scotland remaining both distinct and separate, despite James' best efforts to create a new imperial throne. England and Scotland continue as two separate states sharing a monarch, it being foreign, contrasted being domestic, who directed their domestic and foreign policies along with Ireland until the Act of Union of 1707 during the reign of the last Stuart monarch, Queen Anne. Okay? So Queen Anne, the last Stuart monarch, didn't become the Queen of England until it was unified in 1707. Prior to that, she was just overseeing the English throne, which remained distinct and separate indefinitely. Okay? Indefinitely. If everyone agree with me, please give me a hands up in the chat line. Give me a thumbs up in the chat line, okay? Let's qualify that what the Scotland and England were separate thrones, and as we can see, when Scottish ascended to the throne of England, it dissolved the prerogatives of the crown. I'm not saying this. Prejudice is saying this. Let's see. And prejudice is called the common law of England. United States versus Lee. Right here. United States versus Lee, 1882 case. Page 106, U.S.208. It says, but little weight can be given to the decisions of the English courts on this branch of the subject for two reasons. Okay, for two reasons. Now we know in 1702, the Crown of England, i.e., the government of England, is right here in New Jersey until it was unified in 1707 with the Union of the Crown. Even though it was overseen by a Scottish monarch when the English throne was indefinite. Okay, so everything that the English throne controlled under the crown, i.e., crown land, meaning controlling the land, all right, was protected. Okay, under the king's prerogative. Very important. In all cases where the title to property, okay? Because we're talking about how the property got alienated from we the people, okay? How did the property get alienated from we the people and give it to somebody else now calling themselves we the people, okay? Very important. In all cases where the title to property, so we're specific what we're talking about in regards to we the people, all right? And who the descendants, we the people descended down from, okay? In all cases where the title of property came into controversy between the crown, and we know the crown of England was sitting right here in New Jersey in 1702, even though it was being overseen by a Scottish monarch from a different crown, way the hell over there in Scotland. Okay, we know going back to the alliances, the old alliances, we know that Scotland and France was getting together against England, i.e., the English crown. That was against Edward I in 1292. Scottish independence, 1295. You know what I'm saying? Now we all the way up in 1882, talking about what the Scottish did in regards to the conflict that goes all the way back to 1295, with Scottish independence being given by Edward I of the Plantagenet crown, the King of England, which we can find by here in present day New Jersey revised statute, and showing that in the statute in New Jersey in 2025, the property which we're talking about belonging to the Crown of England was in fact alienated, which is the process called subfeudation, which is the violation of Queen of Pretoria that was passed by Edward I, if we find in Jersey revised statute, showing the alienation voluntarily of the property that actually belongs to you, we the people. Okay? We the people. In all cases where the title to property came into controversy between the crown and a subject, you were held in the right of the person who was king or as a representative of the nation. The petition of right presented a judicial remedy. So you should be able to petition to your property, either the king or the king's representative. But there is no king or king representative until I came back on the scene from your own nation. okay, from your own nation. A remedy which this court, on full examination in the case which required it, held it to be practical and efficient. There has been, therefore, no necessity for suing the officer or servants of the king who held possession of such property when the issue could be made with the king himself as a defendant, i.e., by way of petition. That is a right that we all have. You all have. Two, another reason of much greater weight is found in the vast differences and the essential character of the two governments as regards the source and the dispositories of the power of the two governments and the people who represent the two governments based upon the authority of the two governments that are in question right now. And that will be England, Scotland, and the United States government. Okay, there are in questions to the character of the government that's based upon the government that was protected by the crown at the time of 1702, which was the King of England, all right, or a Queen of England, that being de jure, not de facto, okay? Notwithstanding the progress which has been made since the days of the Stuarts in stripping the crown of its power and prerogative. Did you hear that? So we can see that the Stuarts are not the jure kings of the crown of England that sit right here in New Jersey, because they stripped the crown, i.e. the king, of its prerogatives and jure regalia. That's what we just read in the 1888 case, 1882 case. Do everyone agree with me what I just read? That the Stuarts, who claimed to be the kings of England, were not in fact the kings of England, because they stripped the king of England and the crown of his powers and prerogatives. This was carried on by the colonies on down to what you now call the states. If everyone agree with me, please give me a thumbs up in the chat line, please, ASAP, and a thumbs up. Come on, I'll wait for you. I'm gonna wait for you. Brother Harris, McGarrell, as well as everybody else. I don't see nobody else up on here. Just you two. I have a problem with that. You brothers are new to the channel. Y'all new to the channel. All right. Where are the old people? Where are the old people who make up We the People? Because you're now being replaced by those who now claim they are a part of the people, which they have proven it by their allegiance to what's being said. Because as I always say, he who writes your books sets your timeline. Time never was when we were not. If the life of time begin, the time will come when what? We will be no more. So as he strips the crown of England of the king's royal prerogatives. Okay? We see that. The powers and prerogatives. The powers and prerogatives. It remains true today that the monarch is looked upon with too much reverence to be subject to the demands of the law as the ordinary persons are. Okay? And the king-loving nation will be shocked at the spectacle of their queens being turned out. We talk about Part 2 Secretary being trimmed, the statue of the mother, contrast to the statue of the mother, because Queen Anne was not a queen of England. She was the Scottish queen, all right, and she was the last queen of the Scottish monarch, okay, before it went to the German house under King George I, all right. So we should be shocked as a result of us lacking the understanding of our ancestors, who were in fact kings who protected the nation, all right, and it will be a spectacle of us now, as I'm teaching you, to see our ancestral queens, all right, let alone the de facto queen, being turned out of her pasture, pleasure garden, by a writ of ejectment against the gardener. Okay, against the gardener. Okay, the crown remains the fountain of honor. What crown? The English crown, not the Scottish crown, because they stripped the crown of their royal power and prerogative. The crown remains the fountain of honor, and the surroundings which give dignity and majesty to its possessor, and are cherished and enforced in all the more strictly because of the loss of the real power in the government. You hear that? So the real power was the power that was lost by the Scottish kings who made up the people they identify as we the people now. Okay? You can't make this up. Marinate on that real quick. Okay, so we already know that the Stuarts stripped the Kingdom of England and the Crown of England of its prerogatives and power. Okay, very important. That's very important. So that takes us to United States versus Juan Ark. Because we know when we were enslaved, we were emancipated by the 14th Amendment. And the 14th Amendment deals with the citizenship of those who are now deemed as black people. And if you read the language of United States versus Juan Ark, based upon the meaning of substitute jurisdiction, it said under the common law of England, not the common law of America, not the common law of the United States, not the common law of any state within the United States, not the common law of Scotland or Ireland, but the common law of England. And we know the common law of England was the prejudice created by the King's Bench. Okay? Very important to understand that. All right? So we go here. United States versus Juan Ark. A lot of y'all got short attention spans, so you might have to watch this twice. 1898. This is inclusively and exclusively for we the people, i.e., the emancipated slave. This is only applies to you. If you don't use it, you lose it. All right? If you don't use it, you lose it. Because this not only pertains to your citizenship, i.e., your civil status, but your political status as a right to inherit land that has been alienated from you by the state of New Jersey as a result of the power of escheatment. Okay? The power of escheatment, which only comes by way of interstate. Okay? Interstate, when an heir dies, you are the heirs that are presumably, not conclusively, are dead. Because I'm telling you, you're not dead. So if you're dead, then that means you are resurrected from the dead, because I'm the reincarnation of King Edgar, who was considered, according to our understanding, as Jesus Christ. And he was, in fact, a king of the kings of the kings of England. Okay? Which the government was sitting right here in New Jersey indefinite. Okay? From time immemorial, time out of your mind. There is no common law of England in the sense of a national customary law. We're talking about the common law that was for we the people. Before the Stuarts got here, before the Coddies got here, before the states got here, before the immigrants got here. We're talking about that common law that was here based upon the law of the land, which is the supreme law of the land, before they created the United States Constitution, before they created their state's constitution, before they created the charters given to those immigrants who got here. The only law that was here on this land was called the common law of England, which is now called the common law of the United States. And there is no common law of the United States in the sense of a natural customary law, distinct from the common law of England, as adopted by the several states, each itself applied as its local law. So if this law ain't being applied to you on the municipal level, then you are in slavery. Okay? And the subject to such alterations as may be provided by its own statutes. This is called amendments. Okay? There is, however, one clear exception to the statement that there is no national common law. The interpretation of the Constitution of the United States is necessarily influenced by the fact that provisions are framed in the language of the English common law and ought to be read and in light of its history. Did everyone understand what I just said? If you talk about nationality, about pertaining to the supreme law of the land, over here in North America, as established by the United States, which is why Kim Art, then you must understand the history of the English people. Okay? It's a must. All right? Or if not, they're not going to take you seriously. All right? The fundamental principles of the common law of England, not Scotland, not Ireland, not America, not the colonies. Because if it was, it would have said so. The fundamental principles of the common law with regard to English nationality was birthed within the allegiance, also called legality, obedience, faith, or power of the king. Now, under the Naturalization Act of 1790, they didn't even call themselves subjects of the king. They call themselves white people, which they don't even classify as now, based upon the new data that's collected in regards to demographics. Okay, we classify that based upon the Georgia Survivor Statute, 52:4 52 colon New Jersey Revised Statute. Which one is it? I got it here. Forty-six colon 4-3. No, that's not it. Where is it at? Title 52. I thought I saved it. Okay, ain't no problem. I can look it up. Anyhow, let's continue. Okay. So obedience, faith, and power of the king. The principle embraced all persons born within the king's allegiance. We're talking about specifically about King of England because we're talking about English nationality. Okay? English nationality. Such allegiance and protection were mutual as expressed in the maximum protectio trahit subjectionem et subjectio protectionem, and were not restricted to natural born subjects and naturalized subjects. Once again, and were not restricted to natural born subjects or naturalized subjects, or to those who had taken an oath of allegiance, but were predicable of aliens and abinities so long as they were within the kingdom. You hear that? So this is the prerequisite. Children born in England of such aliens were therefore naturally born subjects. But the children born within the rim of foreign ambassadors or the children of alien enemies born within their hostile occupation of a part of the kingdom dominions were not natural born subjects because not born within the allegiance of the obedience of, or the power, or as what we say in this day, within the jurisdiction of the king. And when we talk about that, we have to understand that you being a subject of the land prior to the land being alienated, specifically us identify as black people, because in truth, your nationality is English nationality, which is the Berber nationality, because prior to 1066, the only king that were ruling as under the English identity was Berber kings. Okay? So we must understand that your allegiance to the king determines your right to be here on this land. Okay? Very important. And not just being here, but what you inherit on this land. Let's see. Under the same case, same case law. Let me just find that. 668. Here we go. All right. Listen, brothers and sisters, your birthright, both in England and the United States, indeed, statutes have been passed at various times, enacting that certain issues born abroad of English subjects or of American citizens, so a subject is now called an American citizen. Vice versa, you are one and the same based upon your identifying with we the people at this particular time, based upon what they determined in uh, uh, 1790, or based upon what it was in 1702. Okay? Even under the jurisdiction of it falling under Scottish monarchs who kept what was already in place intact. Okay? So as we can see, both in England and the United States, we know Scotland is somewhere in the middle. Okay? Scotland is between England and the United States. So they're not excluded from this argument because we've seen in the United States versus Lee what they did. They severed the power and prerogative of the English crown. Prior to that severing, the birthright that you have as a subject or citizen in regards to your right to inherit what your ancestors left you, which was an entail, contrast to fee simple, okay, which was left in a trust for you, okay? It says both in England and the United States, indeed, according to statutes, which is what we call operation of law, have been passed at various times enacted that certain issues born abroad of English subjects of American citizens, respectively, should inherit to some extent at least the rights of their parents. So this is dealing with just sanguineous, not just soil. This is dealing with just sanguineous, not just soil. That's very important. But those statutes apply only to cases coming within their purport. So if you don't raise the argument is therefore waived. Okay? If you don't raise the argument is therefore raised. Waived. Let's see. Right? So statutes have been passed in England and the United States, and they're effective in England or the United States. So that means it only can mean that America is England. Okay, America is in fact England. myself, y'all. Where was I at? All right, let me go back a little further. In this case, I miss right here. I need to pull up a statue real quick. Bear with me, everyone. Is it 52? Bear with, I'm trying to find a statue. Where is it at? That- that- Or 52 colon 486 and 87. That's it. All right. All right. Let me go back to where I was. United States versus one. Kamar. Okay. United States versus one. Kamar. There is therefore little grounds for the theory that at the time of the adoption of the 14th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, there as any settled and definite rule of international law generally recognized by a civilized nation and consistent with the ancient rule of citizenship by birth within the dominion. I repeat, there is therefore little ground for the theory that at the time of the adoption of the 14th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, there as any settled and definite rule of international law generally recognized by a civilized nation and consistent with the ancient rule of citizenship by birth within the dominion. So that means that the 14th Amendment is uniform with the ancient rule of citizenship, because we understand that when you're dealing with civilized nations, we understand that if the American nation was civilized by the Anglo-Saxon history as well as the Native American Indian became civilized, then I tell you that it must have been the English people who are in fact the civilized. Okay? Nor can it be doubted that it is nor can it be doubted that it is in the inherited right of every independent nation to determine for itself, in accordance to its own constitution and laws, what classes of persons should be entitled to citizenship, i.e., we the people. Okay? So we must examine the Constitution and see if the Constitution includes us as we the people. And we know a Constitution is sometimes equivalent to what they call a charter. But it says both in England and the United States, indeed, statutes have been passed at various times enacted that certain issues born abroad of English subjects or of an American citizen, respectively, should inherit to some extent at least the right of their parents. Both those statutes apply only to cases coming within their purport. And they have never been considered in either country as affecting the citizenship of persons born within its dominion. The earliest statute was passed in the reign of Edward III in the Robes of Parliament of the 17th of Edward III, 1343, and it stated that before these times there have been great doubt and difficulty among the lords of this realm and the commons as well as men of the law as others whether children who are born in parts beyond the sea ought to bear the heritage after the death of their ancestors in England because no certain laws has been therein ordained. Y'all better listen. And by the kings, lords, and commons, it was unanimously agreed that there was no manner or a doubt that the children of our Lord the King, whether they were born on this side of the sea or beyond the sea, should bear the inheritance of their ancestors. And in regard to other children, it was agreed in this parliament that they also should inherit whenever they might be born in the service of the king. So this is in regard to inheritance of whether you're an intel heir or an heir that by way of allegiance, which determines your right to be able to have an estate fee simple, okay, which is called absolute fee simple, okay, which is indefeasible contrast to defeasible. Okay, because United States can only guarantee you an defeasible estate, which clearly is a fee simple estate. And I'm going to show you how they did it. All right. But because Parliament was about to depart and the business demanded great advisement and good deliberation, how it should be best and most surely done, and making of statutes and was put off to the next Parliament. That means that the Parliament of England, based upon the Parliament was sitting in 1702, was the same Parliament we're talking about going back to the 14th century, dealing with Edward I. Because while we provide existence of these kings of England, i.e., the Plantagenet kings, in New Jersey revised statute present day. Okay? So it says that when Parliament passed an act entitled A Statute for Those Who Are Born in Parts Beyond the Sea, by which, after deciding that some people be in doubt if the children born in the parts beyond the sea out of the legion of the England should be able to demand any inheritance within the same legion or not, whereof a petition was put in the Parliament. Edward III, and as not at the same time wholly assented, it was agreed and affirmed that the laws of the Crown of England, it was sitting right here in New Jersey from 1702 and definitely going back to King Edward I. Okay, we're talking about Edward III, which is descendant of Edward II and Edward I. Okay, the kings of the Plantagenet kings, which we were incorporated based upon our incorporation, i.e., our charter. Okay. So it says that the laws of the Crown of England is and always has been such that the children of the King of England, and whatever part they be born in England or elsewhere, be able and ought to bear the inheritance after the death of their ancestors. So that means that your estate of inherited cannot be alienated. Once again, that means that the state or any state within the United States, going back to we the people, prior to the we the people that were created by the United States and the colonies, that estate cannot be alienated voluntarily or involuntarily because there were laws passed at the time of Edward I, Edward II, and Edward III against the alienation or the substitution or the ability to be able to transfer property from the grantor, which automatically was the king, according to the revised statute that we see in New Jersey, to somebody else who were not of heirs or descendants based upon the process of livery of seeds. Okay? If everyone understand what I just said, please give me a thumbs up in the chat line. If you didn't, you need to study more. You need to study more. Okay, so we see United States versus Lee clearly says that what our ancestors put in place in the 14th century was still in place in 1702. Okay, until it was severed by the Stuart monarchs when they unified in 1707. Okay? Very important that you remember these dates. All right, Brother McGarrell. Let's see. That what brings us here. Alienation of the property of we the people. Because we just read that according to United versus 1 Kim Art, we not only got the status as citizens or subjects of the kingdoms of England, but we also have the right to inherit what our ancestors, the kingdom of England, had, whether we were over there in what they call now Great Britain, United Kingdom, or what we had here when it was called England prior to those Stuarts dissolving the power and prerogatives of our ancestors. Okay, very important. That brings us to the understanding of alienation of property. Alienation of property. Only 3 thumbs up. I should have more than 3 thumbs up, but this is all right. And property law. I don't do this for the fame. In property law, alienation is the voluntary act of a owner of some property. I repeat. It is an involuntary act. It says the voluntary act of the owner of some property to convey or transfer the property to another. Once again, the property law, in property law, alienation is the voluntary act of an owner of some property to convey or transfer the property to another. So it has to be done voluntarily. That means that the owner or the grantor say, you know what, here you go. All right, here you go. I'm gonna give this to you. I'm gonna let you have that. That is a proper transfer of property from the grantor to the grantee versus an involuntary process of transferring our property, which is in violation of our ancestors who created laws against alienation of property, which rules is called Quint Imperatorus. Okay, laws against alienation of property. How we know that? It says in the next paragraph. Some objects are now regarded as ineligible for becoming property and thus termed inalienable. So some things are ineligible for being distinctively called property, such as those terms being inalienable, such as people and body parts. Once again, now that's the algorithm, brother. Such as people and property are ineligible from being alienated. Okay? Once again, that means that your inheritance cannot be severed. Okay? It says that some objects are now regarded as ineligible. Now, before they wasn't. Now they are considered ineligible, meaning not being able to or didn't qualify or didn't meet the measure of for becoming property and thus termed ineligible, such as people and body parts. So we talk about human being versus chattel. All right. Aboriginal titles is one example of inalienability, save to the crown in common law jurisdictions. All right. Look in this box. Allodial title, fee simple, fee tail, life estates, defeatable estates, future interest, remainder or reversion, current estate, leasehold, condominium, real estate, land tenure. These terms need to be understood because we're going to talk about allodial, fee simple, fee tail, defeatable estates, and future interest. Okay, this is based upon conditions subsequent. All right. We're going to talk about these terms later on in this lesson. Okay? We're going to talk about these terms later on in this lesson. Further, it goes on to say, in England, under feudal system, land was generally transferred by subfeudation, which is a process called alienation. by what? A license from what? Your overlord. Okay? The overlord gave you permission to subjugate, which was in violation of the laws passed by the grantor to the overlord. Okay? Very important. In William Blackstone's commentaries between 1765 and 1769, he described the principle of object of English real property law as a law of inheritance, which maintained that the cohesiveness and integrity of the state through generation and thus secured political power, okay, within families. You hear that? Within families. In 1833, Justice Joseph Story, in his commentaries of the Constitution of the United States, linked landowners' jealous watchfulness of their rights and spirit of resistance in the American Revolutionary War with the system of American institutions which recorded and clarified land title and expanded land markets. This was the creation of the Recorders of Deeds Office, which record property other than the owner. It records the transfer of property to other people other than the owners. Real property, not just real property, but personal property, and that personal property was chattel. But they just said some property is ineligible from being alienated, such as body parts and people. Okay? English common law traditionally protected freehold landowners from unsecured creditors in 1732. The Parliament of Great Britain, not England, but Great Britain, that didn't come till 1707 with the unification of England, Ireland, and Scotland. And prior to that, England was already set up, it had laws already set up, had statutes already set up, had presidents already set up, going all the way back to the 14th century, going back to Edward I, Edward II, and Edward III. Okay? These are the people who were classified as MENA, Middle Eastern or North African barbarian tribes, which were unified by Alfred the Great, and we know that because he, in fact, was in fact a Berber. Okay? We see here it reads on saying that the Act for the More Easy Recovery of Debt and its Massive Plantation and Colonies in America, which was sometimes known as the Debt Recovery Act, okay, which required that all land and slave property in British America, not English America, but British America, because prior to it be calling British America, it was called England. You didn't get America till you got British. British came before America. Now it's called British America as a result of what was going on in America as a result of enslaving the so-called people now called American, who was in fact the English people, okay? Which would actually call Berber people, which were those who were subject to what they call property, chattel, which required all land and slave property in British America to be treated as chattel for the debt collection purposes. All right? It thus removed the shield from the creditors which protected large land estates and which continued to protect those estates in Britain. Not over here, but in Britain. However, the act was amended within a decade to allow colonial legislators over here, particularly in the Southern American colonies, to again protect real estate and transfer it in fee tail, which is intel. Okay? Fee tail is intel. It's not fee simple. Intel. There you go. Fee tail or inherited through primogeniture. Okay? So someone had to be born to be able to reclaim Intel estates, which is called crown land, which is personified by the crown. But they dissolved primogeniture as a result of knowing that some domestic king would be born and will come into the knowledge of himself by knowing thyself based upon history. Okay? Because as I always say, he who writes your books sets your timeline. Those we the people are not the we the people we're talking about. The we the people we're talking about is based upon the people who created laws based upon fee tail, which is based upon the inheritance that was left by Edward I, which we can see clearly dissolved by the Stuarts as well as New Jersey, which were at that time called the colonies, now called states, by amending it from colonies to states, and the very statutory laws that were created by way of what we call Title 46, New Jersey Revised Statute, Title 46, column 3-5 and 15, okay, which we're going to show you in a second, all right? Very important. So alienation of property, and this how they did it. This is how they did it. This is how they alienated the property. Let's look at it. The state government did it. New Jersey revised statute. It's governed under Title 52. If you go to Title 52, colon, what was it? Let's just go. I'm going to show you. This governs the temporary government that New Jersey now resides at. It's temporary, provisionary, and it's only there as a result of the collapse of the government that was there prior to that, which was the government of the crown. Okay, which was the government of the crown. Trenton seat of government, location of legislative sessions. So Trenton is the seat of our present government, okay? Right? It moved from where it was known as the Crown right here where I reside at, which is in Perth Amboy, and now moved temporary to Trenton. And we know a temporary government is a provisionary government, which results in the collapse of the original government, which must be restored, which is why the government that you now have is called provisionary. All right? It's temporary. All right, and that takes me back here. Title 52, because that provisionary government passed laws. No, I didn't want that. I wanted to come here. Right here. This is how they did. This is how they did it. Covenant of season. Because real estate should be governed under Title 46, because Title 46 governs property. Okay? Title 46 governs property. All right? A covenant is an agreement of season. Season means possession. Okay? It says a covenant by the grantor. We know the grantor and the grantee. We both know the difference between the two. A covenant by the grantor and a deed that he is lawfully seized of said land shall have the same effect as if he had covenant, promised, and granted to and with the grantee, his heirs, and the signees that at the time of the sealing and delivery of the deed, he, the said grantor, was seized in his own right of an absolute and indefeasible estate of inheritance in fee simple. Highest form of estate in fee simple is absolute fee simple. Of in all singular the premises thereby granted within the appurtenances. So here you see an agreement that they claim that the grantor agreed to be lawfully seized of his absolute indefeasible estate. All right? We see it right here in the statute. Title 46 governs property. And it says that not just the king, but any heirs of the king has agreed to now transfer that said property, whether it's real property or personal property, to a grantee. We don't know who that grantee is because we don't know who the grantor are, because this is defined by who? We the people. Who makes up we the people? All right? Who makes up we the people? And it clearly and specifically, inclusively and exclusively states that he, the grantor, in a deed. That means that when a deed is created in the language of grantor, that's called a habendum clause. All right? A habendum clause, a habendum clause, that's what it's called. A covenant by a grantor in a deed that he is lawfully seized of the said land shall have the same effect as if he had agreed or covenant, promised, and granted to with the grantee, his heirs, and his signees, that at the time of the sealing and delivery of the deed, he, the said grantor, was seized in his own right of the absolute and indefeasible estate of inheritance in fee simple. Now, there's two types of estate: entail estate and fetail estate. Entail estate and fee simple estate is a result of the practice of common recovery, because through common recovery, you transfer entail estate into fee simple estate. And fee simple estate is the highest form of land ownership in North America. Okay? Very important that we understand that. Not just North America, but it's a practice that's done by New Jersey. All right? So with that, brings me here. A picture speaks 1,000 words. If everyone liked this demonstration, give me a thumbs up in the chat. On the New Jersey Revised Statute 4631 in 2024, it says fetal tenures are in fact what? Abolished. You can look it up right now, and that's what it would tell you. Now, we know that New Jersey was the crown in 1702. All right? In 1702, it was the crown of England. The first charter of New Jersey was not the Constitution in 1776. The first charter of New Jersey was the charter given from Charles II, the Duke of York, to George Carteret and John Berkeley, known as the Profiteers, that was surrendered back to the crown in 1702 under the crown of England. Okay? What proof do I have? The legislative statute, as we said in United States versus One Kim Art, in England and America, statutes have been created in regards to the citizenship as well as the right of inheritance. And we know inheritance is based upon inheriting land or real estate. Because if you ain't got land or real estate, what you gonna walk around with everything in your hands? Don't make sense. New Jersey Revised Statute 46-1 said all feudal tenures are abolished. We know feudalism started with the Carolingian dynasty, and the Carolingian dynasty were the barbarians who practiced slavery, because feudalism is a practice of slavery, indenturedness, servitude, i.e., slavery for the so-called emancipated Negro, black, colored Ethiopian, prior to their understanding of what I'm bringing to you in regards to how you are able to be freed by coming back under the fold by way of allegiance to the King of England, okay? Because the King of Great Britain provided a remedy for you by way of what we call the Debt Act and the Negro Act, okay? The Debt Act and the Negro Act, okay? Stages of your redemption process, all right? Stages of your redemption process. So we see point 1, point 2, point 3 is what we need to look at. Feudal tenures are abolished under 46-3-1. So that means we're talking about the first charter of New Jersey. Let's just look at it. Let's see. Let's see what AI had to say about the first charter of New Jersey. We know AI is ancestral intelligence. Was New Jersey first charter March 12, 1664? Yes. King Charles II patent of March 12, 1664, granted New Jersey to his brother James, Duke of York. The Duke subsequently granted New Jersey to George Carteret and to John Lord Berkeley and Sir George Carteret. All right, these were the original profiteers. Okay, this was your first charter of New Jersey. Okay, when they surrendered it, it was surrendered back to England, the crown of England. All right, very important. How we know it was dissolved or surrendered? We go right to the statute. New Jersey Revised Statute 46:3-1. Figure tenures are abolished. Let's just read the statute. New Jersey Revised Statute Title 46, governing real estate or property. It says the feudal tenures, estates, and incident thereof, are taken away, discharged, and abolished from and after March 12, 1664 by Section 2 of an act entitled An Act Concerning Tenures, passed February 18, 1795, should so continue to be taken away, discharged, and abolished, and no such estate or any incident thereof shall at any time be created in any manner whatsoever. So the first charter of New Jersey was abolished, okay? Was abolished, discharged. So any tenure given by these monarchs, i.e. Scottish monarchs, which United States versus Lee said that they dissolved or the power and the prerogative of the English crown, now restored the power of the English crown because it was sitting right here in New Jersey. They just left because they were not the domestic monarch. Okay, so they left everything in place. We must understand that. So it says, just got a, I just got a text from, not a text, but an email. New Jersey, United States Attorney investigating New Jersey's Governor Phil Murphy. You hear that? United States Attorney investigating New Jersey's Governor Phil Murphy. New Jersey Acting United States Attorney Alina Habba. New Jersey Acting United States Attorney Alina Habba says she instructed her office to look into Governor Phil Murphy and Attorney General Matthew Blinken. Did you hear that? They're under investigation. Habba makes the announcement Thursday night saying Murphy and Blinken have refrained from assisting federal immigration enforcement in New Jersey. New Jersey Immigrants Trust Directive limits local agencies from assisting immigration and customs enforcement. They're in trouble. I want it to be a warning to everybody. I want it to be a warning for everybody that have been instructed in my office today to open an investigation into Governor Murphy, to open an investigation to Attorney General Plackens. Habba said Plackens defends the policy Friday, saying it has already been upheld in court. I'm going to keep doing my job. I know the brave men and women of law enforcement in our state who do extraordinary work every day will keep doing their job. Okay? All right, so they're under investigation, brothers and sisters, all over immigration enforcement, because they are the immigrants. All right, they are the immigrants. Okay, so as we can see here, yes, King Charles Patton, March 12, 1664, granted New Jersey to his brother James, Duke of York, and the Dukes subsequently granted New Jersey to John Lord Berkeley, New Jersey to John Lord Berkeley, and to George Carteret. All right there. So that was the first charter of New Jersey. All right. Now, we see here under New Jersey Revised Statute 46:3-2 that our tenures were abolished. That means that charter was abolished. All right. That charter was, in fact, abolished. We also read here, based upon AI, let's see what AI also has to say. was New Jersey's second charter, March 12, 1664. We already know that. It was his first charter, okay? No, New Jersey's first, no, New Jersey's first and not a second charter was granted by King Charles I to his brother James, the Duke of York, on March 12, 1664. This charter granted Duke of York a vast expanse of the eastern seaboard, including the territory that would become New Jersey. Later, the Duke of York conveyed part of this territory to Sir George Carteret and John Berkeley, who were granted the right to govern New Jersey, says the New Jersey Department of State. Okay? So there you have it again. What else do we have here? Right here. Let's get one more AI assistance. Okay. So we understand New Jersey's first constitution, first charter was in fact March 12th, 1664, which we know that that finger was dissolved. Okay. There was no more. New Jersey's second charter was June 29th, 1844. Okay? Very important. New Jersey's second state constitution was adopted on June 29, 1844. This constitution made significant changes to the state government, including a distinct separation of powers to executive, legislative, and judicial branch. So here in 1844, the second charter of New Jersey broke away the government that was already here in 1702 to 1776. Okay, which was a fusion of government created by Queen Anne, a Scottish queen, but yet she was preserving the English government under the Crown of England because at that time in 1702 it was separate rims. They didn't become unified till 1707. So as it said here, it remains separation of powers into executive. I mean, the 1844 Constitution. Oh, come on. The Constitution made significant change to the state government, including a distinct separation of powers into executive, legislative, and judicial branches. It also limited the voters' rights to white males and granted the people the right to elect governors directly. Okay? Very important to understand this history in regards to uh, the Constitution or the Charter of New Jersey, because we see the first charter was not 1776. That was New Jersey's instrument that they created as a result of a conflict that was with Great Britain. Okay, it had nothing to do with the original charter that was granted by Charles II in March 12, 1666, which was dissolved when Queen Anne restored the English government in 1702, which remained intact till 1707. Okay, this is when the conflict came with the United States. Okay, this is when all this stuff was going on in regards to wanting the rights of the English man and woman, which they didn't have the right to. All right, very important. Why is this important? Let's see. Go here. Back to the article. Now, everyone understand what's been said thus far, so we have no problem understand this. New Jersey revised statute already qualifies that fifteenth have been abolished, which was the first constitution of New Jersey, based upon the charge given by Charles II to his uh, uh, grandson or whatever, Duke of York. Okay, and they gave it to George Carteret and John Berkeley, which was surrendered back to Queen Anne in 1702. Okay, which was under the King of England because New Jersey revised statute under 46.3-2 says the King of England or person receives common soakage of all tenures and honors, manors, lands, and tenements or hereditaments, not the King of Scotland or the King of Ireland when they unified in 1707. So it was inclusively exclusively and inclusively pertaining to an English family. Then New Jersey revised statute 46.3-10 governed the right to the courts to hear matters when they're trying to bar an entail estate over that which is called fee simple. So the courts can't bar the issue entail over fee simple possession of such as the plaintiff, which in this case will be anybody who claim to have an interest in the land here in North America. How we know? Because at this time, all North America was governed under the body of politics was here in North America in 1776 when they declared their independence from Great Britain, which was the government sitting operating under the Crown of England, okay, as qualified by New Jersey Provincial Council, as well as was qualified based upon those who were in that position, such as the individual William Franklin, which we'll bring them into discussion in a second. All right. So here you see a book on real estate, Essentials of New Jersey, Edith Lang and Joanne M. Sobak, which is a universal book used in regards to New Jersey Real Estate Commission of those who take the position or the occupation or the employment of selling real estate. Okay, very important. Page 20. Transfer of title. Okay? Transfer of title. This involves the statutes of uses 1540, as well as the statute of uses by Henry VIII. If you look to New Jersey Revised Statute, Title 46.3-9. Okay? 1536 statute of uses. All right, very important, as well as the statute of, I forgot which one was that. But if you scroll down, all right, if you scroll down, and I'll blow this up, let's read what I highlighted. We already read about alienation of property, and there were laws in place against alienation of property. And that law was Queen Pentoris. Why? Because you couldn't sell that which did not belong to you. And that was based upon de donis conditionalibus, the statutes govern the law of entail estates. Okay? Of entail estates. And entail estates is for heirs. But when heirs die, the estate becomes intestate, meaning that it escheats back to the crown. And there is no crown, then it escheats to the next best thing, the state. Okay, as a result of the state's abandoned property, which is called bona vacatia. Okay, very important. Now, I didn't write this. This is what those, when you go buy property, this is the real estate book or a book similar to this. This is what they use. Title to real estate means the right to or ownership of the land. Title. A parcel of real estate may be transferred from one owner to another by living or it may be transferred by will or descent after a person has died. In every instance, however, alienation, the transfer of title to a parcel of real estate, is a complex legal procedure involving a number of laws and documents. Okay? Now, being what you already know about English law on property versus alienation, it says this chapter discusses 4 methods of title transfer. Title can be transferred during a lifetime either voluntarily or involuntarily. Once again, voluntarily or involuntarily, and at death, either voluntary through a will or involuntary if not will, if no will is left. So when no will is left, it becomes a interest of interstate, meaning they left without making a will. Our ancestors didn't make will. Our estate was transferred by operation of law by way of Queen of Praetorius passed in 1290, and that prevented laws against alienation, which is called subjugation. Okay, no subjugation, no subletting, or no subleasing. Okay, you cannot do that with an estate that's entailed. All right, alienation of title. Alienation of title is governed under a New Jersey Vice Statute 4603-15. The Donuts Conditional Books, which is a law passed by Edward the First in 1285. Okay. Then there was New Jersey Revised Statute 4603-5, Queen of Praetorius, because land is allodial pertaining to New Jersey Revised Statute 4603-6. Okay, so Queen of Praetorius and the indulgence condition of Bush, which you see in New Jersey Revised Statute, were law preventing alienation or subjugation of land by heirs, which were heirs by entail, contrast to fee simple. Okay, very important, because when fee simple, that resulted from a process of common recovery. Title of the land may be transferred voluntarily by an individual and the government through dedication or public grant. Involuntarily. Title to property can be transferred by involuntary alienation, that is, without the owner's consent. So it can be transferred without the owner's consent. It said alienation is a process by way the grantor, the owner, transfer property by way of either by way of, as they say, covenant of adhesion, which he agrees. Let's define that word, covenant of adhesion. A covenant of adhesion by the grantor is a deed that he lawfully seized of said land to have the same effect as if he had covenant promised and granted to with the grantee, his heirs and assignees, that at the time of the sealing and delivery of the deed, that's called lottery of season, he and said grantor, the grantee and the grantor, was seized of his own right of the absolute and indefeasible estate of an inheritance in fee simple in singular the premises thereby granted with all appurtenances. This is very important because we go back to the exhibit, you see here. The owner is the grantor. Title to property can be transferred by involuntary alienation, that is without the owner's consent. So based upon the book, the owner ain't even in question now. They're doing it without the owner's consent. Okay? When the owner should be, in fact, be the grantor. Such transfer are usually carried out by operation of law ranging from government condemnation of land for public use for sale. That's called eminent domain power, compulsory purchase, or what we call acquisition of sovereignty. Once again, eminent domain, compulsory purchase, or acquisition of sovereignty by way of what we call prescription, which is an easement of some stuff that you don't know. And the only way that can be done is when the heirs are not there to stop you. When a person dies interstate and leaves no heir, the title to his or heir of real estate passes to the state or by a street. Well, according to Standard Oil Company in United States versus Otis Elevator Company, the state don't have that power. Okay? You don't have that power. Let's look at it. Let's get a better diagram of how the alienation through subfundation was done by the state of New Jersey, but the Crown didn't get it. The state of New Jersey got it. Okay? The state of New Jersey got it, and how they got it was unlawful. It says right here, Standard by Parsons versus Standard Oil Company and State versus Otis Elevator Company, which I just cited, the only estate in power is the king and the crown of England when land is allodial. We know under 4603-6, it says that the land is allodial in New Jersey. The king is next of kin when there is no heirs, and a grave substantial danger of conceding to the state or plaintiff as the preferred position in a court as a plaintiff in regards to a matter concerning its treatment. Okay? So when the state coming or anybody coming says they got the power to take property through the eminent domain power because it has acceded to them, guess what? They're lying. Okay? They are lying because Supreme Court said you're lying. How we know it? Why? Let's look at what the state just got caught in a lie. Let's see. Right here. So in spite of what the Supreme Court just said, New Jersey Real Estate Book says this. This is on page 261. Page 261. Page 261. All right. Now let's show you how the covenant season was done in regards to getting or tricking the grantor to give up all his absolute indefeasible estate. How? It was through involuntary alienation. Why? Because we were to presume as being dead. Person died interstate. According to the Supreme Court, if you died in the interstate, that means the only person who was supposed to take it was the king. Isn't that what that just said? But now we see that when you die and the street comes into a question, the king don't get it. Who gets it? The state of New Jersey. Do everyone see that? Please give me a thumbs up in the chat line if you see what I'm seeing. That's the evidence. Okay. So if y'all dead, because we know United States versus one, Kim Ark said you got an inheritance here, whether you're on that side of the water, on this side of the water. That's called littoral or reparent rights. Okay. I know it because they recorded it right here in this book. Okay. And United States versus one, Kim Ark clearly says that not only are you a subject or citizen of the state over here on this land, but also you have the right to inherit from your ancestors, i.e., your parents. Okay, that's just sanguineous versus you just being born here, which doesn't have nothing to do with your parents. Okay, so we see here as a result of you dying, whatever your ancestors here had based upon their parents and their parents, that means that all that has succeeded not just to the House of Stewards because they dissolved the king's prerogative to be able to revert the state back based upon what they call what was the term they call it? Conditions subsequent. All right, which is the future interest in the state in lieu of reversion. Okay, very important. But instead of that process coming to play based upon operation of law, they created some new law, which was a law of operation to be able to transfer it to what we call involuntary alienation. Now the property is taken by what? The state. All right, and the state take it for what? Public use. Right. Once the state take it for public use, they only do that through the eminent domain power, which is called compulsory purchase power, or prescription of sovereignty, okay? Through condemnation, etc., okay? And then now, public or government agencies of the state of New Jersey is now governing the goddamn property. Do you see it? And when they give it to you based upon credit, okay, because you need credit. I talked about that. Public Credit Reporting Agency, okay? That's all governed by banking, by monopolies, by insurance. They all govern all that. They're all subject to the state. And the state is doing this based upon the eminent power that they assume they have, now realizing that they don't have that power because the only power to exceed land or any property belongs to the king. Okay, especially when the people or we the people who are subject to the king are not there. Okay, but because we're not there or because you don't want to be there, what happens? You fall right into the category of not being able to pay this debt or secure debt that you gave up, which was the security for the debt, which was the property that was originally yours, based upon you being in the air. Now you caught between rock and a hard place because now you're stuck in foreclosure processes as a result of those so-called deeds that you have, which were covenant of season that they initially created to take it from the original grantor. Now they take the place of the original grantor and now through the process of common recovery, now create false deeds, warranty deeds, which are color and title. Okay? Very important for you to understand that. And now you find yourself in court through a sheriff's sale. Very important. This is by openness, notorious, continuous, hostile, adverse possession. So they kind of talking about squatter rights. Hell, they're the squatters. They are the original squatters. All right? Because we're talking about rights of inheritance across the waters. Okay? Across the waters. They're saying if England was over there, then we have the right to inheritance over here. If England was over here, then we have the right to inheritance over there. That's called littoral reparent rights. Okay? And they cover that right here. Right here. This is all in their real estate books. They already know about this. We can see Schultz versus Wilson, Superior Court Appellate Court, 1957, deal with the reparent and littoral rights of the Crown of England. Okay, this is in the real estate book. Reparent rights is estates and land that's separated by a body of water, whether it's a large body of water or a small body of water. If it's a small body of water, it's called reparent right. If it's a large body of water, it's called littoral rights. Okay, very, very, very important. Reparent rights and littoral rights. Let's look at it. Reparent, where's littoral at? Right here. Littoral right. See that? So reparent rights is a short body of water between estates, and littoral rights is estates between a large body of water, such as seas and oceans. And based upon what United States versus Juan Kim Art, we have a right in inheritance of the estates that were left by statutes passed by our ancestors over here or in England. Okay? Very, 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 very important. Very important. All right. Most of the people that are now in possession of property have what they have in their possession is this particular deed called a warranty deed, which is a covenant deed. All right. Which the language shows the habdom, which is the language between a grantor and a grantee, or grantor heirs or grantees heirs. Okay, very important to understand the language. Okay, how they're able to alienate the property based upon an instrument called a deed, which is recorded in the county recorder of deeds, which records property recorded given to other than the owner. Okay, very important. So when you get a deed or you have a deed, look at it. Okay. What you should look at is this one, the covenant of season. Without the covenant of season, the ability to transfer will not be there. Page 249 and 250 of the real estate book. Okay, in New Jersey. Look at it. Promised by grantor. The grantor promises are listed below. Each promise is expressed in the language of New Jersey law with reference to the law is followed by an explanation in plain language. The grantor promises that one, the grantor is lawfully seized of the said land pertaining to 46:4-3. The grantor is the legal owner. So it already says that the grantor is a legal owner of under New Jersey Revised Statute 46:4-4. Without that owner, anything else will not be possible based upon the right to convey, the right to have quiet possession, the right to convey it to somebody else. All right, Section B, Section C, Section D, and Section E. None of the requirement will be available to you if Section A was not qualified, which means that the grantor allowed it to be lawfully seized. Right? Now, what grantor are we talking about? Because no one identifies the grantor. No one identifies the grantor. Well, let's identify the grantor. Now, I don't know why they haven't seen this statute. If they're going to use a particular statute out of Title 46, particularly 46:4-3, Covenant of Season, why didn't they see the revised statute governing real estate under New Jersey revised statute 46:3-2? Because it definitely exemplifies who the grantor is. Okay? It exemplifies who, in fact, is the grantor. All right? New Jersey Revised Statute 46:3-2 says the tenures and honors, manors, and lands, tenements, or hereditaments, or of an estate of inheritance at the common law held either by the King of England or of any other person or body or corporate representing the King of England. Because if you're a corporation, you must receive a charter from the King of England. And we know that the charter that the King gave the state of New Jersey or the colonies back in March 12, 1664, the statute says it was in fact dissolved. So if that was dissolved, then any statute that they have now is dissolved. Okay? Very important. If everyone agrees with me, please give me a thumbs up in the chat. So if the grantor is the King of England, and according to Supreme Court and State versus Parson and Standard Oil Company and the United States versus Otis Elevator Company, they clearly tell you that if the land is allodial, it's king, which is next of heir when there's no kin. It's the king who's next of heir when there's no kin if the land is allodial. Well, guess what? The statute says the land is allodial, so the king is next in line when there's no kin, according to 46:3-2. And we know that if there's no feudal tenure can be given out based upon those kindred, i.e., those we the people. Why? Because all feudal tenure has been abolished. All right, that is so important because that goes back to the crown under the New Jersey Provincial Council that was the seat of government back in 1776. And the royal governor at that time was who? William Franklin. Okay? William Franklin. William Franklin. And this was under the crown of England. We must understand this. All right? Because William Franklin, illegitimate son, is the illegitimate son of who? Benjamin Franklin. And he gave the charter to who? Queens College. All right? He gave the charter to Queens College. We know the King of England, i.e., those Scottish monarchs who were sitting as the kings of England, gave charters to who? Viscount Cornbury and George Carteret, which we see according to the statute, was dissolved. Also, William Franklin, under the authority of the Crown, gave charter to Queens College. Okay, but we see that charter was dissolved. Okay, how we know it was dissolved? It was amended. It was amended unlawfully. What edition and name of that book are you talking about, Brother Harris, from the House of Harris? Because I talk fast, so refresh my mind what book you was talking about that I was speaking about. All right, New Jersey Provincial Council was under the Crown, and William Franklin was the governor at that time under the Crown, and he gave the charter to Queens College on November 10th, 1766. November 10th, 1766. Now we know that New Jersey's charter was revoked when Charles II gave a charter to Duke of York, which, according to New Jersey Revised Statute 4603-1, under the revised statute governing real estate, was dissolved. And the only person that has the right, if the land is allodial, is the King of England, because we know United States versus Lee clearly says that the Stuarts dissolved the power and prerogative of the Kingdom of England, which was indefinite under the Crown of England, going back to our ancestors, Edward I, Edward II, and Edward III. Okay, which you can find here in present-day statutes in New Jersey. All right. So it's very important to understand that in New Jersey Provincial Council, under the authority of William Franklin issued the charter to who? Queens College. Okay, that brings me here. Okay, that brings me here. New Jersey's Constitution of 1776. On July 2nd, 1776, New Jersey became the fourth American colony to adopt a constitution declaring independence from Great Britain. It was composed of 5 days, although delegates considered it a temporary charter. Temporary. Temporary means provisionary, meaning they had to put something in place. Okay? Well, within that charter, the preservation of the supreme law of the land was instituted in that charter. Article 22 and Article 23. Right here. The common law of England was the supreme law of the land in 1776. We know that because the government in 1702 was the Kingdom of England under the King of England, even though it was under the authority of a foreign monarch, contrast to a domestic monarch. We know that a domestic monarch only occurs through the process of primogeniture, which involves intestate, which we know the founding fathers abolished. So we see that the common law of England under Article 22 was preserved, all right? And we read Article 23, it clearly says, provided always in its true intent the meaning of Congress that if a reconciliation between Great Britain and these colonies should take place, and that the latter be again taken under protection of the government of the Crown of Great Britain, this charter should be null and void, otherwise remain firm and inviolable. Okay? So the Crown of Great Britain didn't come into fruition till 1707. Prior to that, the crowns remained separate, and the government of the crown, when it was separate, speaking specifically speaking about the crown of England, was specifically situated right here in New Jersey, because the common law was not the common law of Scotland. It was not the common law of Ireland, but was the common law of England, which all the founding fathers agreed to incorporate under Title 22 of the revised statute. Okay? Very, very, very important. And that only remained in effect for 68 years. Okay? If you add 1776 to 64, 68, you come up with the year 1844. On July 2nd, 1776, New Jersey became the fourth American colony to adopt the Constitution, declaring independence from Great Britain, not the Kingdom of England, but from Great Britain. It was composed in 5 days, although the delegates considered a temporary charter. Why? Because the government was not functioning under the crown at that time like it was in 1702. It was functioning under the Scottish king of the monarch of Great Britain, i.e. King James I to King James to Queen Anne. These were Scottish monarch, and United States versus Lee clearly said that they dissolved the crown's prerogatives and power. But that dissolve of the powers and prerogatives of the crown was only supposed to exist for 68 years, because from 1776 plus 68 is 1844. Okay? 1844. That was the second charter of New Jersey. The first charter, which was the one dissolved in March 12, 1776, the 1776 Constitution was only a result of the Declaration of Independence between Great Britain, which was only supposed to last for 68 years, would bring it to what? 1844. And 1844 was the year of New Jersey's second Constitution, okay? When they totally dismantled the fusion of government, the executive, legislative, and judicial branch that was there through time immemorial. Okay? Because the fusion of government that Queen Anne put back or restored goes back to time immemorial. Okay? Very, very, very important for you to understand that. Because we have the 1844 Constitution. One second. Let's see. We read the 1776. Let's now go to the 1844. The 1844 Constitution. We know that this is the second Constitution of the state of New Jersey. The first Constitution was the charter from Charles II. What book are you looking for, Brother Harris, from the House of Harris? You can look for that later. Stay concentrated on the lesson. Focus on the lesson. You can do that later. But please tell me what book you're looking for. New Jersey's second constitution shifted governmental powers, which had been vested disproportionately in the legislature under the state's first charter. We know the first charter was going back to Charles II and George Carteret. We see here the first charter, which was a fusion of government under the Queen Anne when it was surrendered, now wind up 68 years later, and the Constitution of 1844, which took all the power of the legislative to the executive branch, in which now the authority now resides. And in addition to the direct election of the governors by voters, the 1844 Constitution also provided for a gubernatorial veto power of the appointment of the most high-level officials by the governor. Okay? So we see that in 1844, the second Constitution of New Jersey shifted the power of the government from the legislative branch to the executive branch. Okay, the first charter in March 12, 1664, and all the way up till 1776, ultimately was embedded in the Crown of England. That is no dispute in regards to that. Okay, that is very important. All right. And we know in 1844, which was the second charter, they dismantled the fusion of power of the executive, legislative, and judicial branch. If everyone understands that, please give me a thumbs up in the chat line so I can continue to move on. That brings us to the 1947 Constitution. All right. Stay with me, brothers and sisters. Stay with me. The 1947 Constitution of the State of New Jersey. We already read the 1776. We already read the 1844. Now we're reading the 1947. We know that the 1844 was the second charter of New Jersey. We know that the first charter was the charter given from King Charles, which was dissolved in March 12, 1664, as provided by New Jersey Vice Statute 46:3-1, which ended all feudal tenure. So if it ended all feudal tenure, that means that there should not be no government operating right now based upon the 1776 Constitution, which they said was temporary, which is governed under Title 52 of the New Jersey Revised Statute, which said it's temporary. Okay? So under Title 52, the temporary charter of New Jersey incorporated all the other agencies of the state based upon that charter of 1947, and then made every instrument of the state party to it by way of what we call contractual agreement. All right. How I know it? Let's prove it. The New Jersey County State Constitution was drafted by a convention of delegates from each county convened from 12th of June to 10th of September in 1947. The new charter, second charter, further strengthened the office of the governor and reorganized. Remember, in 1844, they switched the legislative power of the government to the executive power of the branch, which was governed by the governor on the state level. All right. And then the 1947 Constitution strengthened it. Okay. And it said the new charter further strengthened the office of the governor and reorganized and unified the judicial system, not the legislative branch, but the judicial branch, okay, under the Supreme Court. This was under Alfred Driscoll, okay? Alfred Driscoll, okay? Very important to understand that, all right? We understand that Rutgers University, better known as Queen College, was given to was created by William Franklin, the illegitimate son of Benjamin Franklin. He was loyal or royal to the crown. We understand that R.B. Meyer, Governor Myers, presented a revamp of Rutgers University from its original charter, which they claimed they lost it. They didn't lose it. They just lost. They claimed they lost it, but they just incorporated that statute, that charter, inside New Jersey Revised Statute under Title 52, which governs the reincorporation of the employees, i.e., the trustees of what they call Rutgers University. Which prior to that revampment, they were subject to the charter as issued by William Franklin back in November 10th, 1766. Okay, and this is when you see the change of the king's government or the crown's government to a government that was under the authority of prescription of sovereignty by way of acquisition by the state's government, and then all the properties start to be transferred by way of what we call escheatment, under the eminent domain power by adverse possession by hostile takeover. Okay, because we know William Franklin was locked up after hostile takeover. Okay, if everyone agrees with me, please give me a thumbs up in the chat line. Okay. Rutgers University. Rutgers University, officially Rutgers, the state University of New Jersey, is a public land grant research university consisting of 3 campuses. All right. Chartered in 1766, Rutgers was originally called Queen's College in the name of Charlotte Mecklenburg. And she was affiliated with the Dutch Reformed Church. It is the 8th oldest college in New Jersey. I mean, 8th oldest college in the United States, the 2nd oldest in New Jersey, after Princeton, and one of the 9 colonial colleges that were chartered before the American Revolution. Once again, it was chartered before the American Revolution. It was called Queen's College, then Rutgers University. Very important. Let's go to the history. We know the Constitution of 1776 was the result of the conflict with Great Britain, and Great Britain was ruled by the House of Stuart, which were Scottish monarchs, which were foreign monarchs overseeing the English crown, which was here right in New Jersey in 1702. We understand that that government was a fusional government, which was changed in 1844 under New Jersey's second constitution or second charter by those governors, and which put in place or strengthening the governor's powers by way of the 1947 Constitution, which was underway in what we call the gymnasium, or what we call Rutgers University. And Rutgers University was chartered by the Crown. So they have a higher obligation to the Crown than the state of New Jersey. Okay? Very, very, very important. History. 2 decades after the College of New Jersey, which is now Princeton University, was established in 1746 by the New Light Presbyterian Ministry of the Dutch Reformed Church, seeking autonomy in ecclesiastical affairs in the 13 colonies, sought to establish a college to train those who wanted to become ministers within this church. Ecclesiastical politics, okay? Very important. Through several years of efforts by Theodorus Jacobus Bringlinghissing, later the college's first president, Queen's College received its charter on November 10th, 1766 from New Jersey's last world governor, William Franklin, the son of Benjamin Franklin. Once again, Queen's College received its charter on November 10th, 1776 by the last world governor, William Franklin, the illegitimate son of Benjamin Franklin. Let's go back to New Jersey Provincial Council. Now we know in 1844, the fusional government that was here in 1702 was separated, and then it was strengthened in 1947 based upon the separation by the governors right there in Rutgers University in the gymnasium. When we look at the history of Rutgers based upon the charter, it was actually given to William Franklin, and William Franklin was arrested when he tried to revive the crown powers in the government that the crown went by, which was the fusional government. But as a result of the intent of New Jersey's founding fathers or the colonies, etc., it was to none avail. Okay, so we see it said on December 6, 1776. This is after the charter was given to Queen's College. Okay. William Franklin paroled New Jersey legislator, but yet it never met again. Why? Because he was locked up on instructions from New Jersey Provincial Congress, which replaced New Jersey's provincial council. Okay? There's no overlooking these conclusive facts. All right? Very important. Why is this important? That takes us back to the province of New Jersey. Because New Jersey's first charter was in March 12, 1664. That goes back to the province of New Jersey, which predates New Jersey Provincial Council under the province of New Jersey, which was under the crown. Okay? Very, very important. So let's look at that to get the full picture, because the picture speaks 1,000 words. So from 1664 to 1673, it was ruled by the profiteers, George Carteret, John Berkeley. From 1702 to 1776, it was ruled by the Crown of England under a Scottish monarch known as Queen Anne, but the government was already here in New Jersey, known as His Majesty's Council, to 1776, when they arrested William Franklin, who chartered Queen's College, now called Rutgers University. Very important to keep that in mind going on with this lesson. The province of New Jersey, of the middle colonies of colonial America, and became the United States of New Jersey in 1776. The province had originally been settled by Europeans as part of New Netherland. So you have to go into the Anglo and Dutch wars, or the Anglo, or the English, or the what we call United Kingdom and Netherlands alliances to understand that. But it came under English. Well, you could say English because prior to 1066, there was only Berber kings. So 1066, when William the Conqueror invaded England, this is when they took on the term English kings. All right. So it said English rule after surrender in that context of Fort Amsterdam in 1664, becoming a proprietary company. The English renamed the province after the island of Jersey and English Channel, i.e., we're talking about Jersey. Jersey. The Dutch Republic, pardon south. The Dutch Republic reasserted control a brief period from 1673 to 1674. After that, it consisted of two political divisions, East Jersey and West Jersey. This was after the surrender of Fort Amsterdam. This is when Charles gave the charter to Duke of York to George Carret and John Berkeley for assistance. Okay, so the two political divisions, East Jersey and West Jersey, which was bigger than New Jersey. It encompasses Pennsylvania as well as Delaware, as well as some parts of New York. It says so East Jersey and West Jersey until they were united as a royal colony in 1702. The original boundaries of the province were slightly larger than the current state, extending to parts of the present-day state of New York until the border was finalized in 1773. Okay, so you must understand geography in regards to demography. Okay, and we see based upon the status, it was under the proprietary colonies from 1664 to 1673. Then it came back under the Kingdom of England. It didn't say Great Britain. It didn't say Scotland. It didn't say Ireland. It said England. Because the government of England was sitting right here, and the capital seat of that government was sitting right here in Perth Amboy. When it was under the Proprietary, it was in Elizabethtown. But when it came back under the Crown of England, it was Perth Amboy, which was indefinite. Okay? And until 1707 with the unification of England, Ireland, and Scotland. If this makes sense, everyone give me a thumbs up in the chat line. Okay? Very, very, very important. Okay, so Rutgers University was chartered by William Franklin when? And November 10th, 1766, but he was loyal to the crown of England, even though his ancestry was not from England, because his citizenship was based upon that of just soil and not just ingredients. Okay, you must know the difference. Let's go to the revised statute and qualify this. Okay. New Jersey Revised Statute, Title 18A 65-2. Education, Section 18A, colon 65-2. The term the corporation defines trust impose. All right, y'all better pay attention. The term the corporation, you hear that? The term the corporation. All right, let's go back to Rutgers University first. Look at this itself. Son of Righteousness. You got 1766 and the Bible. Motto: the sun of righteousness shines also upon the west. Okay? The sun of righteousness also shines upon the west. Not the east, but the west. So let's see if it's shining upon the west. Okay? The term corporation, as used in this chapter. Now we know the first charter of New Jersey was March 12, 1664. And we know under Title 46, governing property, and we know property, real estate is governed under the land. It says that feudal tenure were abolished in 1664. Okay? So everything that was under the authority of the Crown of England remained under the authority of the Crown of England, even after the feudal tenure has been abolished. Because we see here, it says the term the corporation as used in this chapter should mean the said body, corporate, and politics incorporated under the name of the trustees of Queens College in New Jersey by royal charter dated November 10th, 1776. This was amended March 20th, 1770, confirmed and amended by the acts of the legislature of the state of New Jersey adopted June 5th, 1781. This was still under the fusion of government under the crown because we know it didn't change to the to a separation of power of government till 1844. Okay, that didn't come into play now. So we're talking about from November 10th, 1766, under charged again by William Franklin, officer of the crown, okay, amended by the legislature of the state of New Jersey, adopted, amended March 20, 1770, okay, confirmed and amended by the acts of the legislature of the state of New Jersey, adopted June 5th, 1781, and in May 31st, 1799, respectively, and had perpetual succession and existed. Its name having been changed to the trustees of Rutgers College in New Jersey by an act of the legislature adopted November 30th, 1835. And to Rutgers, this involves where Rutgers gets its name from when it was changed from Queens College to Rutgers University from Rutgers, what's his name? Henry Rutgers, okay? This when that comes into play, November 30th, 1825, and to Rutgers, the state university, pursuant to an act of the legislature approved June 1st, 1956, one of the departments maintained by which it continues to be the Land Grant College of New Jersey. Okay? So we see some fundamental dates that need to be understood. June 1st, 1956, which is when New Jersey contracted with Rutgers by way of a contract which made Rutgers an instrument of the state, separate from its instrumentality of the charter initiated by the crown as initiated by William Franklin in November 10th, 1766. That we must understand in regards to case law. Okay? Very important. So let's look at the player. We know who William Franklin is. Who is Henry Rutgers? Let's look at Henry Rutgers, because that's when it went from Queens College to Rutgers University and named of Henry Rutgers, who was a slave trader, I might add. Henry Rutgers was a United States Revolutionary War hero and philanthropist from New York City. Rutgers University was named after him, and he donated a bond which placed the college on sound financial footing. He also gave a bail that is still in use today. Okay, so Queens College fell into financial trouble, and as a result of the assistance of a loan from Henry Rutgers, it was renamed Rutgers University. All right. Rutgers graduate from King's College. Rutgers graduated from King's College, now Columbia University, in 1766. Following his graduation, he promptly became an advocate for independence of American colonies from Great Britain. He went on to serve as Captain American Force at Battle White Plains, later as Colonel for New York Militia. During British occupation of New York, Rutgers withdrew to Albany. During his absence, the British used the family home as a army hospital. What else? Rutgers supported the American Colonization Society, arguing against abolitionists that free people of color, and should be removed from the United States rather than allowed to go as a population. He was himself a slaveholder, like many of his relatives. So, Henry Rutgers, which Rutgers University was named after, prior to its original name, Queen's College, chartered by William Franklin, who was loyal to the Crown of England, as well as the Stuart kings who were ruling on the Crown of England when it became known as Great Britain in 1707. He was a slaveholder, okay? And this is where the name Rutgers University got its start from, under that name, okay? That's very important to understand that, because Henry Rutgers was the place where New Jersey's second, third constitution was originated, which was the Constitution of 1947, which was done in the gymnasium of Rutgers University under the governor, Alfred Driscoll. Okay? We know the first governor, or royal governor, was who? William Franklin. Then we had Henry Rutgers, who helped assist Rutgers University when it was in financial trouble, which is a result of how it got its name. And then, as a result of the government of the crown being dissolved, and now a separation of government by way of the executive, legislative, and judicial branch in 1844, it strengthened the government that was operating under New Jersey Provincial Congress, then changed to New Jersey New Jersey Legislative Council. It then, in turn, uh, uh, revamped the laws that were governing New Jersey under the New Jersey 1947 Constitution, that was actually created in the gymnasium of Rutgers University, named after Henry Rutgers, a slaveholder. Okay? Having nothing to do with the original agreement that the charter under Queen's College, initiated by William Franklin, the illegitimate son of Benjamin Franklin, who was not loyal to the Crown of England. Okay? We must understand what's at stake. With that being said, we come here. Robert Myers. Who is Robert Myers? So we got William Franklin, chartered Rutgers University. We got Robert Myers. Robert Myers was also a governor of New Jersey. William Franklin was the governor of New Jersey. We know if it wasn't for uh what was his name? Robert Henry Rutgers, that he presented a loan, and he was a slave trader. Okay, so now we come up to Robert Balmy Myers. Who is this guy? He was an American Democratic Party politician and attorney who served as the 44th governor of New Jersey from 1954 to 1962. Before being elected governor, Myers represented Warren County and New Jersey Senate. Okay, now this is very important, because before uh, Myers became governor, he was preceded by Alfred Driscoll. And Alfred Driscoll was the one who created um, the new administrative government and the gymnasium of Rutgers University in 1947, which set the pace for the succeeding governor of Myers, which was Richard J. Hughes. And Richard J. Hughes is the person named for in which our our Supreme Court of New Jersey resides in Trenton, New Jersey. Okay, the same geographic area where uh, Trenton resides at. Okay, it's called Richard J. Hughes Complex. Okay, I got documentation filed right there with that court in regards to the shit that's going on. Okay, very important. So, Miners preceded was preceded by Alfred Driscoll, and he was succeeded by Richard J. Hughes. Okay, so now let's look up Alfred Driscoll just to find out who he was. Alfred Eastlack Driscoll was an American Republican Party politician who served in New Jersey Senate, representing Camden County, who served as the 43rd governor of New Jersey. Okay? It was succeeded by Robert Myers. All right, it's very important because Alfred Driscoll goes back to New Jersey's 1947 Constitution, which we go right here. Right here. New Jersey County State Constitution was drafted by the Convention of Delegates from each county, convened by 12th June and 10th of September 1947. New charter further strengthened the office of the governor and reorganized and unified the judicial system under the Supreme Court. The document also included new rights and protections and required the legislature to provide a thorough and effective system of free public school. Okay, so from Alfred Driscoll, who was his successor was Minor, and Minor played a big role in the revamp of the educational system known as what we call now Rutgers University, which became Rutgers by way of Henry Rutgers, who was in fact a slaveholder. Okay? Very, very, very important for you to understand that, which brings me here. Who was Butcher Hughes, the successor of Minor, okay, Robert B. Minor, who was, like I said, the successor of Alfred Driscoll. Richard J. Hughes, also a governor. Richard Joseph Hughes was an American lawyer, politician, and judge, Democrat. He served as the 45th governor of New Jersey from 1962 to 1970. I was born in 1970, and as Chief Justice of New Jersey Supreme Court. With that being said, it brings us here. Okay? It brings us here. Superior Court and Appellate Court of New Jersey. Superior Court of New Jersey, the Appellate Division, concerning trustees of Rutgers University, all right, versus employees of Rutgers University. Very, very important case in regards to understanding Rutgers University as it is now and how it should have been based upon the original charter given by William Franklin, who was working for the Crown. Because New Jersey don't longer see Rutgers University in that light. Though they have some type of autonomy as an instrumentality of the state, they're not governed under the same authority of the charter, which was originated from William Franklin when it was operating under the Crown back in 1702 to 1776. Very important to understand because this is where I'm going next. This is on appeal. Well, I thought. Okay. Defendant Heather C. Taylor in Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey, points out, Rutgers or the university appealed from a June 27, 2024 order that disqualified Taylor from continuing in her office as serving on the board of governors of Rutgers, which were prior to them being called the board of governors, they were called the trustees of Rutgers. Okay, so now this case was about a court warrant being issued to have her removed from the board of governors as a result of her moving from a particular geographical area known as Middlesex County. The court, or the trial court, ruled in favor of the plaintiff to have her removed from the board of governors as a result of her moving. And the only thing is that what was questioned is that the order to show cause why she was removed was filed past the statute of limitation. Okay, the rule says that it should have been filed 45 days in regards to the committed infraction. Okay, but it went a couple of years. It went over 3 years. Okay, so the trial court removed her, but she appealed it, and the trial court, appellate court, said that the authority of the plaintiff, i.e., Rutgers Board of Governors, did not have the authority to remove her, and that the authority that the Rutgers claimed they had, based upon a public interest in the interest of justice, to have her removed, they did not fit that description, especially in light of a court warranto. Okay, because a court warranto was an authoritative statute that was created to have someone removed from holding an office that they did not necessarily earn, or was not actually authorized to hold. Okay, so this is what this case is about. I'm not going to read the whole case. I'm just going to go to the important facts of the case. And knowing, in light of what we already know about Rutgers University, okay, in light of what we already know about Rutgers University and the history concerning Rutgers University, I'm going to go here. Now, we just read Title 18A65 in regards to the Royal Charter that was incorporated in New Jersey by statute, as well as the amendment of that Royal Charter to the charter that they now have, based upon the amending of it, okay, which is going to be raised in another court case involving Rutgers, okay, which we'll go to in a second. Right here. So in light of what we already read, it says Rutgers currently point out that the university status is unique. While the university is an instrumentality of the state, the Rutgers Act gives the university a fair amount of autonomy and does not treat the university like a governmental entity or an agency. New Jersey statute annotated 18865-14B allows the governor and the trustees to appoint members to the board of governors, because originally, when it was under the Queen's College, the governor, the attorney general, the treasurer were all a part of Rutgers University under that body of politics, because it was known as though people identify as we the people. Okay, now we're talking about a different we the people, because it said Rutgers has some type of autonomy, but yet, in fact, it is an instrumentality of the state and is also considered a body corporate and politics. Okay, very important. So it says that the governing trustees to appoint members to the board of governors. See also New Jersey statute annotated 18865-2, which we just read, describing Rutgers as a body corporate and politics, going all the way back to the Royal Charter, November 10th, 1766. Okay. They're not operating under that Royal Charter, but it does go back that far, okay? Outlining that the state and Rutgers work in conjunction to advance the educational goal of the state. Rutgers also point out that the Rutgers Act, we're talking about Rutgers Act now, not the charter, but an act to create Rutgers as a separate body of politics at the instrumentality of the state, yet having some type of autonomy to manage its own affairs. So Rutgers also points out that the Rutgers Act grew out of a contract or agreement between Rutgers and the state of New Jersey. Consequently, in determining whether a Rutgers Board of Governors member holds an office within the meaning of a quo warranto statute under revised statute 2866-6, there should be careful consideration of interests of the person or person moving to remove a board of governor members according to 2866-6, dealing with the quo warranto and the origin of a quo warranto, because these board of governors are not acting as officers according to the origin of the quo warranto, as well as the office that they hold as Rutgers employees based upon their original contract going back to November 10th, 1766, which was under the authority of the Crown by way of an officer of the Crown, i.e. the Royal Governor, William Franklin. Okay? If everyone is caught up so far, please give me a thumbs up in the chat line. Okay? Consequently, in determining whether a Rutgers Board of Governors member holds an office within the meaning of quo warranto statute, New Jersey Revised Statute annotated 2866-6, there should be careful consideration of the interest of the person or persons moving to remove the Board of Governors members. See New Jersey Statute annotated 2866-1. The quo warranto, I repeat, brothers and sisters, this is what the appellate court said in regards to the Board of Governors calling in to question the status of an officer known as the Board of Governors to hold an officer such as the Board of Governors, and using the statute, which is the prerogative of the Crown, known as the quo warranto, to question that office holding of one of the employees of Rutgers University. And the appellate court said that there must be special consideration to those holding offices, and the special consideration those having the ability to call upon the standard, such as the quo warranto, governed under New Jersey Revised Statute annotated 2866-6. It says the origin of a quo warranto statute is not based upon how they're using it. It's based upon an old English practice under the King of England. It didn't say Scotland. It didn't say Ireland. Now we know Rutgers University was issued by what? A charter by William Franklin, and that charter was under the charter of the Kingdom of England, not Scotland, not Ireland, not Great Britain. Okay, England, the Crown. So the quo warranto statute that they tried to use to have somebody removed from offices under the Board of Governors, which was prior to that called the trustees of Rutgers, known after Henry Rutgers, which was a slave trader, and he funded Rutgers as a result of it having his name. When it was prior to that, it was called Queen's College, which fell into difficulty as a result of the players in the game at that particular time. Okay? So it says the quo warranto statute is based upon an old English practice under the King of England, or someone representing the king could inquire by what authority a person held office. Okay? So either the King of England or someone representing the King of England. As we can see, none of them represent the King of England. Okay? State versus Patterson and Hamburg Turnpike Company, 21, New Jersey Law 9-10-11, 1847. Explaining that New Jersey's quo warranto statute draws from the old English practice of allowing claim to be brought when there is intrusion into or unlawful holding of an office or franchise within the state. See in-rate application of Livesey. Quo warranto was used only for challenging the right of an individual to hold a public office. Okay? Rutgers University did not hold a public office. They were a private affiliation institution. Okay, before they became a public institution. Quo warranto was only used for challenging the right of an individual to hold public office. Defining quo warranto under the Black Law Dictionary, it says defining quo warranto, moreover, defining quo warranto, Define quo warranto, moreover, in the common law during the pre-statutory period, The court warranted remedy generally belonged to the state. It didn't say originally, it said generally belonged to the state to protect the interest, the public interest, and the interest of justice of the people as a whole, and guard against certain persons from exercising an authority that they did not lawfully possess. Okay? That they did not lawfully possess. In 1949, outlining the court warranted power originally belonged to the crown. You hear that? Allowing it to dissolve corporations for abuse and neglect. For abuse and neglect. Adjudicating appeals a writ of court warranted brought by the state to oust a member of the state senate. Given the undeveloped record in this matter, we do not think it's prudent to interpret whether the court warranted statute applies to Rutgers Board of Governors members. In that regard, we know that the Board of Governors members are volunteers and serve without pay. Serve without pay. Hold that thought. So it says the Board of Governors, prior to that, called the Trustees of Rutgers, through the Rutgers Act, became an instrument of the state of New Jersey, although it had some type of autonomy to deal with the affairs as incorporated as a body of politics. Okay? But those Board of Governors call upon the ancient statutes such as the Court warranto to oust a member of the Board of Governors. And the court ruled that that Court warranto, under the prerogative from which it was created, did not belong to the Board of Governors or any employee that worked for Rutgers under its prior instrumentality, subject to the jurisdiction of the state of New Jersey and the Board of Education. Okay? It's very important that we understand that, which is the reason why the case was dismissed, remanded, and the defendants were restored to a position as the Board of Governors because the plaintiff, i.e. Rutgers, under the Board of Governors, did not have the authority to oust a member under the statute Court warranto because that Court warranto statute did not apply to them. Okay? As well as the complaint also raised that if there was an issue by the Board of Governors in regards to somebody unlawfully holding an unlawful position, it should have been raised by the governor. Okay? Because under the original charter of Rutgers University, the governor was in fact a trustee. Okay? It says, second, consideration that mitigates against enlarging the statute of limitation period is the absence of the state taking a position in this matter. The state, and particularly the governor, have a clearest public interest in maintaining the proper governance of Rutgers and the enforcement of the Rutgers Act. Why? Let's see why. Let's go to it. Trustees of Rutgers College, a new case. All right? This case that we just reviewed was passed in 2025. Okay? From the Appellate Court of New Jersey, 2025. And they said that the court warranto only applied to the King of England. Everyone see that date up there. Argued December 10th, 2024, decided January 17th, 2025. Rutgers tried to use a prerogative of the Crown, but they're not the Crown, nor are they representatives of the Crown, so therefore they cannot use that. Okay, we use this case to verify though the Crown's prerogatives are still active, it did not apply to them. Why? Let's go back to a case that's from the Court of Chancery. Okay, which was called the Trustees of Rutgers College. Let's look at that in closing. Trustees of Rutgers University, 1956 case. A lot of people might think that this is not relevant. You will see. You will see real soon. And everything I'm telling you is relevant. History of Nature and Organization of Rutgers. Listen. Now, we just read New Jersey revised statute in regards to the original charter that was filed in Rutgers under New Jersey Educational Statute, which is governed under where that statute is. Where is the statute at? (18A 65-2). The term the corporation defined in trust pertaining to Rutgers University, also known as Queen College, from the original charter from November 10th, 1766, which was granted by who? William Franklin. Okay? Very important. Those are the contractual agreements that Rutgers and the trustees of Rutgers, i.e., Queen College, should be subject to. But because of the Rutgers Act, we now established a hybrid form of Rutgers that now became embedded and indebted to the state of New Jersey by way of the contractual agreement, which will qualify here. This is back in 1959, okay? Which, as we see in 2025, in the case we just read prior to this one, that the prerogatives that they should have had back under the crown, they did not have here in the present day as a result of the Rutgers Act, which was incorporated on June 1st, 1956. June 1st, 1956. Let's go back. Right here. Let's see it before we read about it. In closing, the trustee of Rutgers College, New Jersey, by Act legislated adopted November 30th, 1825. That goes back to what's his name? Henry Rutgers, who was a slave trader. All right. The State University, pursuant to the Act of the Legislature, approved June 1st, 1956. This is under what they call the Rutgers Act, okay, which revamped Rutgers from its original embankment, which was under the authority of the Crown, okay, because the charter of Queens College was issued by Rutgers University. By William Franklin. William Franklin was the author of the council. When they locked him up, the state of New Jersey had the authority to now take the property of the crown via no crown representatives are there. Okay? So now, all of a sudden, in the case law we're going to read now in closing, the trustees of Rutgers University are now questioning their position and authority and obligation under the charter based upon the revampment of Rutgers under the Rutgers Act of June 1st, 1956. They're now questioning that authority. And the court is going to agree that there is no constitutional violation based upon the Rutgers Act and the agreement and contractual agreement of the trustees under Rutgers, because it did not involve the original trustees under Queens College under the authority of the charter going back to November 11th, 1766, which is subject to reversion and reamendment when the argument comes up, which we're going to see argued in the case law that we're going to now in closing. Okay? In 1956. Okay? 1956. The same year. Everyone listen in closing. Rutgers University has its origin in Queens College, chartered by King George III. So a king chartered Rutgers University by way of a charter issued by who? William Franklin. All right? William Franklin on November 10th, 1776, which you see provided in the statute. Okay? Until it was amended on June 1st, 1956, which is the case are we reading. And now the Rutgers trustees are questioning the reorganization of Rutgers University under the authority of the Attorney General, under the instructions of the governor, knowing that the instructions that they're receiving now from the Attorney General and governor are not the instructions that were originally given by the Attorney General and the governor, who was actually members of under the original charter given November 10th, 1776, which we'll read right now. Let's read it. Rutgers University had its origin in Queens College, chartered by George III, a king. He might have been a foreign king. Nonetheless, he was a king overseeing the affairs known as the affairs of the Kingdom of England. Okay? Because we know William Franklin was then loyal to the Kingdom of England, even though it was being seen by Scottish monarch. And United States versus League clearly shows you that they dissolved the prerogatives of the crown, and it had to be restored. So it says that it was organized under an amendment charter dated March 20th, 1770, and instructions commenced in 1771 at New Brunswick. So they're not talking about over in England. They're not talking about over the United Kingdom or Great Britain. They're talking right over here in the city of New Brunswick, ruled by a king who never stood foot on the soil that they call New Brunswick. The original charter provided, not the general charter, but the original charter provided the right and power to establish the conduct of a college for the education of youth in the learning languages, liberal and useful arts, and the sciences, especially in divinity, preparing them for the ministry of other good offices. Okay? Pertaining to the body of politics, because in fact, it was a body of politics. The provisions that the president shall be a member of the Dutch Reformed Church. The incorporation of the trustee in perpetuity. You know what perpetuity means, right? Under the name trustees of Queens College in New Jersey with appropriate corporate powers. That's C. D. Full power in the trustees over the government of the college to make ordinances, orders, and laws for the government of the college and to execute the same. So we're not only talking about a school, we're talking about a government that teaches information of the government in school. Okay? Because it was a body of politics. E. Election by the trustees of the president, a professor of divinity, professors and tutors, treasurers, the clerk, the steward. This is court. All right, and other inferior officers and ministers to serve during the pleasures of the trustees. Very important. Under the original charter, brothers and sisters, under the original charters, the membership of the trustees originally consisted of what? The governor or commander-in-chief, the president of the council, the chief justice, the attorney general of the colony for the time being, and 37 named trustees of the colony of New Jersey and the province of New York and Pennsylvania without stated term, with power in the said trustees or any 12 or greater to elect any number of persons or trustees at any and upon any vacancy, so that the whole number of the trustees do not exceed 41, and that not above 1/3 of the said numbers at any time be of those ordained ministers of the gospel. Okay? We must understand this. All right? All that changed after the American Revolution. After the American Revolution, the charter was amended and confirmed by the state of New Jersey in 1781 upon the petition of the Board of Trustees, and interesting changes being the removal of the 1/3 restriction upon ordained ministers as trustees. Wilson Laws, published 192 again, and in 1799, upon the board's petition, the charter was amended again in minor respects and confirmed. Passing laws, page 384. And in 1825, the name was changed to the Trustees of Rutgers College in New Jersey in recognition of Colonel Henry Rutgers, a generous donor, and the charter was amended in minor respect. So as we can see, it went from the authority of the crown by way of the charter of the crown by William Franklin, Lord to the crown of England, and then it was amended by way of what we call the Rutgers Act, okay, on June 1st, 1956, okay? And now all of a sudden now, as a result of the governor and the attorney general request, as a result of the Rutgers Act, as a result of your petition, you're upset because now the authority that you so-called have is now being questioned by the new enactment of this new enactment, June 1st, 1956, which was presented by who? The attorney general and the governor, which the ultimate decision was left up to the courts to determine if it was in violation of the Constitution. Of course, it's not in violation of the Constitution because you're talking about a Constitution that was created by way of rogue states or rogue colonies. Okay, because we understand the original charter of New Jersey was March 12, 1664, which was dissolved and surrendered back to the Crown of England. You then, in return, uh, um, rebelled against the Scottish kings who was overseeing the throne of England, which was sitting right here in New Jersey in 1702 to 1756. Instead of renewing the crown authority, which was under the Constitution of 1776, which was supposed to be in 68 years, that would bring you to the year 1844. But instead of restoring it, reconciliation, you now dissolved it by separation the division of government that was then there in 1702. Okay, if everyone understand that, please give me a thumbs up in the chat line, because as we can see here, after the American Revolution, shit changed. Okay, it all changed. Let's see, why did it change? The internal control of the university by the Board of Trustees is subject to certain public supervision by the State Board of Education to examine into in manner of conducting its affairs and to enforce an observance of its laws and regulation and the laws of the state. In addition, the property of the state which the Board of Trustees holds at the university is subject to visitorial powers. Okay, now we see as a result of the Rutgers Act, they now fall under the authority of the state of New Jersey by way of it being an instrument of the state of New Jersey and now not subject to the authority of the original charter as prescribed by the statute. It's now prescribed by way of the it being an instrument of the state by way of the June 1st, 1956 recommendation that you now fall under the provision of the Board of Education. How we know it? Let's see. In closing, sorry about that. The present and future situation of Rutgers as a state university. As a result of what transpired as a result of the original charter down to all the leading figures associated with Rutgers, such as what was the name? Robert B. What's the name? Henry Rutgers, Robert B. Miners, Alfred Driscoll, Richard J. Hughes. All right. Uh, they have a lot to do with the overthrow of the government that was already in place that was instilled in Rutgers University by way of the charter, issued by William Franklin, a loyal royal official of the crown government. Okay. But as we can see, as a result of the recommendation on June 1st, 1956, which is the year this case was brought in, not excluding the arguments raised in the 2025 appellate decision in regards to the court wants the power to remove somebody usurping an office that they did not earn or did not deserve or were not authorized to hold. Okay, and they clearly said that authority resides in the king. Okay, that authority resides in the king, and which the state of New Jersey or the governor or the attorney general is not a king. Okay, not in 1959 and not in 2025. Let's go here. In closing, changes. Trying to get to the page. Okay. Okay, here we go. Changes in Rutgers. No dang dang. Now we just read the statute, June 1st, 1956. Changes in Rutgers under the proposed reorganization. Chapter 61 of the law of 1956 was approved by the governor, Honorable Robert B. Minor. Didn't we just discuss Robert B. Minor was? All right? We just discussed who Robert B. Minor was. And Robert B. Minor's uh, was preceded by Alfred Driscoll. And the successor of Robert B. Minor was Richard J. Hughes. We know our Supreme Court was named after Richard J. Hughes. We know Alfred Driscoll was the one who created the 1947 Constitution, which is the charter and the gymnasium of Rutgers University. And now we're seeing that Rutgers University only exists because of the revampment on June 1st, 1956, under Robert B. Minor. Okay, right here. Chapter 61 of the laws of 1956 was approved by Governor Honorable Robert B. Minor on June 1st, 1956, after the passage by the legislature in May. The Senate voted 19-0 and the Assembly 50-1. That act, known as the Rutgers, the State University Act of 1956, embodies the proposed reorganization of the university. It will become void unless the board, trustee, and its discretion accept and adopt its provision prior to September 1st, 1956. Once again, it will become void unless the Board of Trustees and its distinction accept and adopt its provision prior to September 1st, 1956. Now let's go into the question in closing in regards to the decision that the court made, Chancery Court, I might add, in regards to the proposal presented by the Attorney General and Governor outside of the original agreement or contract or charter that the governor and the attorney general was originally part of, that was under the charter sanctioned by William Franklin under the royal governor prior to the creation of the Rutgers Act. Okay? You must understand that. So let's go into the case or the decision. If everybody keeping up with me so far, give me a thumbs up in the chat line. Okay? We summarize the problem here. By Chapter 61 of the laws of 1956, the Board of Trustees is called upon either to accept or reject a reorganization of the university as detailed in that act. As we can see, they apparently has accepted it because the statute known as 18A 65-2 clearly shows that they accepted the reorganization package that was presented by the governor and the attorney general which is not the same governor and attorney general that was there when William Franklin was operating under the authority of the crown. So they are not considered a part of We the People, like We the People was there at the time William Franklin was there. And even though his actions uh, were good, he was not a benevolent person because of his ancestry. Okay, he was not holding the office based upon ancestry. It's based upon a position that he was appointed to, based upon him claiming to be born on the soil. Okay, so the court summarized the approach in regards to the reorganization of the board of trustees. And was called upon either to accept or reject the organization of the university as detailed in the act. Plaintiffs are trustees of a very considerable body of assets, for the most part, derived from private donation in the cause of higher education over more than a century and a half, and including also assets of substantial value derived from grants of the state of New Jersey and the federal government. Although Rutgers is at present the state university under the immediate management and control of the plaintiffs are in doubt and in need of the instructions of the court, whether their duties and authorities as such trustees of the state university and its private and public assets encompasses the effectuation of the changes which Chapter 61 proposes to make its university charter and organization. So under the reorganization uh, charter that was initiated by the governor and attorney general by Chapter 61 of the laws of 1956, it planned to reorganize but still maintain the autonomy of the ecclesiastical authority that the trustees of Rutgers University had under the authority of Henry Rutgers when he helped assist them by way of financial asset. Okay? Very, very, very important. Let's go all the way to the bottom, right here. Right to that. Come on now. Okay, here we go. In closing, I conclude that this court has jurisdiction to grant a final judgment and to give instruction and declaratory judgment. A declaratory judgment is based upon adversarial proceedings, which we'll talk about in a later time. I conclude that this court has jurisdiction to grant final judgment and to give instruction and declaratory judgment with respect to the matter alleged in the amended and supplemental complaint that physical support of Rutgers, the state university pursuant to Chapter 61 in the laws of 1956, and under the enactment of New Jersey legislature from the time to time granting appropriation to Rutgers, the state university, and will not constitute a violation of Article 8, Section 3, Paragraph 3 of the Constitution of New Jersey 1947 Constitution, not New Jersey's original constitution, as the donation of lands or appropriations of money to or for the use of any society, association, or corporation, whatever. Okay? That Chapter 61 of the laws of 1956 does not constitute an appropriation of money in violation of Article 8, Section 2, Paragraph 2 of the Constitution of New Jersey. That Chapter 61 of the laws of 1956 deals with the matter of substantial public concern and is not unconstitutional as an impairment of the obligation in contract or deprivation of the due process of the law forbidding by the Constitution of the state of New Jersey or of the United States. Now remember, the trustees of Rutgers University are not acting under the original charter. They are acting under the Rutgers act that was presented on June 1st, 1956. And according to that new constitution, not that 1776 Constitution or the 1844 Constitution, but the 1947 Constitution created by Alfred Driscoll, supported by what's his name, Robert B. Miners and Richard J. Hughes, which is the Supreme Court we presently now have. It clearly says that they were not in violation of the Constitution because the Constitution they are obligated to is colorable in nature on the face of it. Okay? Very important to understand that that Constitution on the face of it is colorable. Okay? As a result of the colorable laws that created the unconstitutional Constitution. And it's impaired the original contract that originated from the original grantor. Okay, so that means that the covenant of season, how it was established or written in the revised statute, was a violation of the right of reversion that the crown had in regards to the future interest that the crown had in the property. And we're going to see that explained in this case so eloquently. Okay, in closing, New Jersey of the United States, and that the Board of Trustees of Rutgers College in New Jersey individually, collectively, and on behalf of the corporate plaintiff, has the power and authority to adopt Chapter 61 of the laws of 1956 as a valid and constitutional enactment to amend the charter of the corporate plaintiffs in conformity therewith, and to effectuate the plan or reorganization which is implemented thereby. And the same is valid and proper exercise of their fiduciary duties, which will not of itself subject it to them to liabilities or penalties for any violation or dereliction of it or the fiduciary duties. That the effectuation of the plan of the organization of the trustees of Rutgers College in New Jersey, which is implemented by Chapter 61 of the laws of 1956. And that the adoption of that said act and amendment of said charter thereby will not of themselves as a matter of law adversely affect, forfeit, or cause a reverter of the corporate plaintiff's interest in the properties and funds held or administered by it, or which may in the future inure to its benefit. Subject, however, hear that? Subject, however, in every case to special conditions subsequent, meaning after, or reversionary, or other provisions affecting, and to the proper construction of any particular gift, bequest, trust, transfer, or other applicable instrument, including but not limited to the funds known as the beneficiary funds, and so designated in the annual financial statement of the corporate plaintiff. So it's telling you that you are not going to be in violation as a result of you accepting the Rutgers Act under authority of Chapter 61 Law of 1956, i.e. January 1st, 1956, and that the interests and the properties and the funds held by the plaintiffs, i.e. Rutgers trustees, administered by it, or which may in the future inure to its benefits, will be subject, however, in every case to the special condition. That means that there's a what they call a special clause, okay? A special clause denoting to special conditions, which are meaning encumbrances, subsequent, meaning after, or reversionary, or other provision affecting into the proper construction of how you originally supposed to be operating based upon the charter prior to the one you're now operating based upon the contractual agreement, based upon you now being an instrument of the state of New Jersey under the act which you adopted. Okay, you had the choice not to adopt it, but yet we see that you did. Okay, so with that being said, what does it mean by way of what we call reversionary? Let's look at it. What is reversionary? Reversionary. Relating to the right, especially of the original owner or their heirs, to possess or succeed to property on the death of the present possessor or at the end of a lease. Did you hear that? Reversionary relates to the right, especially of the original owner or their heirs, to possess or succeed to property on the death of the present possessor or at the end of a lease. This is very important because this all deals with the law of reversionary. What is the law of reversionary? Let's look that up in closing. Reversion law. A reversion and property law, remember, they alienated the land. Okay? Alienation is called subjugation. Subjugation is by changing intel state and to fee simple do a practice of what they call common recovery. So those who estate was be unlawfully converted to fee simple, based off the common recovery process, you have the right by way of petition the court to have that estate now reverted back to you as a result of your future interest in that estate. So it said in reversion and property law, in a future interest that is retained by the grantor after the conveyance of an estate of a lesser quantum than he has, such as the owner of a fee simple granting a life estate or a leasehold estate. And there's only three ways: fee simple, life estate, leasehold, and defeasible. Okay. Once the lesser estate has come to an end, the lease expires on the life estate, tenant dies, the property automatically reverts back to the original grantor by what? Operation of law. Once again, operation of law based upon the future interest. What is the future interest? The future interest is the interest in a defeasible estate. Let's look at it in closing. Future interest. And property law, and we know property law is a dealing with alienation is a law governing the alienation of property that actually belongs to the original grantor. Okay, so if the grantor land was alienated, then he has a future interest in that land based upon reversionary right or remandment right, because the estate that was unlawfully taken by way of adverse possession was done by way of what they call what we call covenant of season. Okay. It's in the property law and real estate, a future interest is a legal right to property ownership that does not include the right to a present possession or enjoyment of the property. So that means that right now you don't have it, but you have the right as a result of your future interest in that property. It says future interests are created on the formation of a defeasible estate. What is a defeasible estate in closing? A defeasible estate is created when a grantor transfer land conditionally upon the happening of the event or condition stated by the grantor. The transfer void may be void or at least subject to annulment. Okay, and the state not subject to such condition is called an indefeasible estate. Okay, very important. Historically, the common law has frowned on the use of defeasible estate. You hear that? The common law has frowned on the use of defeasible estate as it infers with the owner's enjoyment of their property, and as such has made it difficult to create a valid future interest. Okay, that brings us to conditions subsequent in closing. A condition subsequent is a philosophical and legal term referring to a defined event which terminate a proposition or a contractual obligation, in contrast to a condition precedent. So a condition subsequent gives you the ability to violate on contractual agreement or obligation, especially if the agreement was made unlawful. We know it was unlawful because we understand that the grantor, in closing, as we see it based upon the exhibit that I presented to you in the opening of this lecture, was the king under revised statute 46:3-2. Okay? As you can see, the grantor is the king. All right. If he didn't grant anything, then that means there will be no tenures, whether they were feudal or just land tenures. Okay. So it's very important to understand that New Jersey has stolen the land as a result of stealing the esteem power of the crown, which belongs to me, your king. Right here. I'm almost finished, ain't that? As you can see, in order for you to reclaim your property, you must satisfy that you are in fact are an heir. Okay, and show that they have voluntarily alienated your property as a result of the adverse possession that is being practiced by the eminent domain power of the state of New Jersey, when according to the state of New Jersey, the land belongs to the king. Okay, I would like to go on further and elaborate on this lesson, but for the sake of time, I cannot do so. So with that, I'm going to close out on this lecture, and I hope that everyone enjoyed it. Please do your diligence to research what was presented to you, especially in regards to the case law, i.e. precedents, in regards to going back to the original charter involving the people who created the charter, which denotes to those people, i.e. we the people. And if you are of English, then 9 times out of 10, you are those people. But you have to go back prior to the word English when it was created based upon the invaders who alienated the land, which was William the Conqueror. And the ones who were there prior to the alienation done by William the Conqueror and all those who succeeded him was the ancestry of the Berber people, which according to the data collected now on the demographic is those who are Middle Eastern, North African descent, which according to barbarian history, these are the people who related to the Berbers. So with that, I love you all, and I'm gonna greet you as I always greet you, and that's in peace and love.